It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell is here. We're going to talk about recall. It's finally here, but Paul says it's not so hot, actually. We'll also talk about AI, a lot of AI news. Apple Intelligence 2 came out today. Gemini Advanced came out today, and so did Copilot Vision. Interesting. Plus, Fortnite goes 5 by 5. I don't know what that means, but Paul will explain next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Episode 911, recorded December 11th, 2024. A back-end guy. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we get together and talk about everything going on at Microsoft. You know, fortunately, it's not just me doing all the talking. Joining us right now, to my right.
Left.
to my other, over there.
I don't know what I thought I was going to see over there.
Is Paul Thurrott.
I don't know why you looked.
Thurrott.com. And then there's Richard Campbell from runisradio.com. Hello, guys.
Hello, Leo.
Merry. You see, I got my the lighting of the official
very
Christmas
nice.
trees.
Yeah.
They're bottle brushes. It was the cheapest thing I could find.
Nice.
They're not going to last
Those
more than
are
the
really
season
cool.
anyway.
I think they look good. So I wanted something small because, I can't have a 10-foot tree. You wouldn't see nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
So I found these are the smallest I could find on Amazon. We did a whole search.
Nice.
Paul, I like how you've decorated your facility.
Yeah, I've got my. What do I have? I don't have anything. What do you mean?
And of course, if you live in Madeira Park, as Richard Campbell does, a star suffices.
It's out there,
oh, look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
He's got the misty mountains in the distance. Yes. If you ever had to dump a ring in Mount Doom, I know where I know where I'd go.
Texada Island out there. We had some snow on it earlier.
It looks like there's still some. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Paulie.
I didn't do it.
Lead us not into temptation, but lead us into Redmond with the latest news.
From Temptations there, without a doubt.
We're going to continue the Lord
Temptations
of the Rings
later
references.
with Richard at the end of the show. That's what the Temptations
Redmond being the Mines of Moria that is halfway between here and Mordor.
I think everybody knows Steven Sinofsky was an orc.
No, he was a wizard.
Oh, he was the wizard.
Yeah, it's just a question.
Saruman, was he the white
wizard or bad? Yeah, we don't know.
Gandalf or was he Saruman? I'm not sure.
Well, the tale grew in the telling. It's hard to say.
Yesterday was Patch Tuesday.
Yeah. So yesterday
there was at least 1 day in there, I think. Right?
I thought I was going to have this story to tell this morning where this new update for Windows 11 24H2 is not going out reliably because I have two computers. I wasn't getting, no matter what I did, I was looking for firmware updates. In one case, installed a firmware update. I'm like, all right, this is it. Will not install. And then I realized I had put those computers on the dev channel, and that's why they weren't getting the build. Oh, so there's no problems, actually. Me. I've installed it on several PCs. So, but yes, so the final patch Tuesday of 2024.
Ooh, when you put it that way, it sounds monumental.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way I sort of think of this is the final, there's nothing final when it comes to Windows versions, but I feel like this is what Microsoft wanted to get out in 24H2. The remaining features that didn't quite make it. I can tell you that bug in File Explorer where the menu opens up and goes off the top of the screen, not fixed. That's hilarious. So I guess we're waiting on January for that one. But they've added the jump lists in Start so that when you right-click on an icon for an app that has jump lists, you'll see them there as well. The shortened form of the time and date display in the taskbar is on by default now, and that gets rid of the little bell icon for notifications because nobody uses it, and it makes the time and date smaller, so it takes up less space over there. Android file sharing, which I've not. Whoa, was that true? No, I can't remember. I don't think I've experienced it yet, but this works over Wi-Fi. So if you've connected your Android phone to PhoneLink, you don't have to be connected to it. It will, with a cable, it will just let you access the Android file system directly from File Explorer. So you can browse around and download files, whatever. So, and then some other less exciting stuff. But yeah, so this is kind of the final feature set slice in time for the year. But as we're about to discuss, there's actually a lot more coming. It's kind of
This year?
no. Well, in the Insider program, yes, but in stable, no. So this is stuff that will start appearing in January, I would think. That's coming up. But there's a lot more. And this year, I think one of the big stories of the year in my space, anyway, in our space, is that it was a very chaotic year for Windows updates. And based on what I'm seeing just today, that's absolutely going to continue into 2025. So
I mean, part of me is just like, this was 24H2, which was this incredibly big bite.
Yeah.
Even without the Copilot Plus PC thing and the whole ARM thing, like even if you took that off, this was still going to be.
It's still a mess. I agree 100%.
Then you add ARM into the equation, and whatever deal they actually cut with Qualcomm, and just made it hard. I got to think at one point there were 3 deployable branches of 24H2, which is 2 more than you should ever have.
And 3 more than Microsoft can handle with any reliability. So, yeah, I agree 100%.
What would is that the dev channel? What are the 3 different? No,
he meant he doesn't even mean the Insider program. He means just in stable. So,
so how does that work? Oh, there's one for enterprise.
Copilot Plus PCs. No,
okay.
Normal PCs, and then AMD, Intel, whatever you want to call it, x64 Copilot Plus PC. So, yeah,
starting to look a lot like Linux.
I don't know what it's looking like. It's looking like you're walking back with a giant plate of spaghetti and you trip and it lands all over the place. And every once in a while you still find like a little more of it somewhere else.
Little piece.
That's what the year's been like. So
yeah, it's a combination of technical and political issues, right?
Yeah.
Really,
which, I guess is classic Microsoft really in some sense. I think the issue here is twofold. I mean, one is this notion that Microsoft's biggest customer base by far is business customers who don't want any of this crap.
No.
And 2, Windows just in general is a mature, one might say, legacy desktop platform and really should not be updated to this degree. We understand what people use Windows for. It's optimized really well for that kind of thing. And man, they just can't stop throwing stuff at it.
Well, I also think they are feeling around for what their relevance is too, right? Like that. Yeah. This is no longer the focal point of Microsoft. And so in some ways, a little more freedom. And it's also a different team, right?
Well, freedom is like Home Alone. Like the parents have left and they forgot something. In other words, it's like a lack of parental or adult supervision.
Yeah, we could call that,
which I guess we could call it freedom. But I was just
trying to be positive here, man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I at the end of the show, I'll have some of a little bit of year-end recap stuff. I think there might be a little bit more of it still in the middle as well. I mean, this is going to come up next week and in the future. But I'm looking back at this year, and it's like I can't believe what has happened here. I had some guy on one of the social networks write me and say, as someone who supports whatever number of desktops, these changes, I mean, it's really hard to keep up with the help calls and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, no, I have a 1,200-page book about this subject. Believe me, I understand your pain. It's like, it's not even possible to stay up on it. So
lots of sysadmins holding 11 out.
Yeah. Right.
Like that's the reality.
Which kind of makes, that's another element that makes this a little strange, honestly, because you could argue up until now that, and especially with 24H2, which, as we discussed last year, has some architectural changes under the hood that make it, superior in some ways, especially from sort of a security footing to its predecessors, that they've arrived at this thing that was maybe the vision all along, just to give them a little bit of credit they don't deserve, but whatever. And this is when the businesses are going to start migrating over to Windows 11 en masse.
Yep.
This is the time to stabilize and slow down. And there is just no evidence of that. It boggles.
Yeah. No,
boggles
and as I, recognizing the system and mantra is change is good. You go first.
Yeah. Yes, right. We're both going to jump out of the plane together, and then they push you off.
You're not going to go to 11 until 24H2 settles down, and you keep looking over there going, settle down yet? And you know what? nuts.
That would be a great sign to have, like in an IT admin's office, if they had offices anymore, which would be like, this one doesn't go to 11.
I might have to make that show.
Yeah, it's a pretty good name for it, like a T-shirt slogan or something.
Yeah, well, as we close in on people actually having to pay for extended support for 10, late next year,
then we're going to find out what really
we're going to really have have an excuse of a show that this one doesn't go to 11.
Yeah.
Because the other play on this, and I think this was part of the whole Snapdragon event, is there an excuse to shift hardware? Is there hardware that I need to make my workers more productive? And it'll come with 11. In fact, you won't have a 10 option.
Right. There you go. Yep.
And that's the other angle on this. It's like, I'm not going to migrate any of these machines. I'm going to buy new. My 10s are going to phase out as they're replaced. Yeah.
I suspect lots of organizations will do that, actually, or are doing that. Maybe not so much on ARM, although we're going to talk about this in kind of what I think of as the second segment. But regarding ARM, the pushback I always get on ARM is from IT admins. It's from people who support these organizations that often have kind of esoteric needs, as I think of it. And I'm not talking about, custom apps or whatever. I mean, they're maybe in manufacturing and they have specific hardware compatibility requirements, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that a lot of the change that comes in organizations actually comes from like C-class executives who are like, hey, there's this thing called a MacBook Air and it's awesome. And you're going to support it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That was the old iPad story. It's like, I will be using
the iPhone too, right?
Figure it out.
Yep. You have to figure it out, right? So there are these guys that are sort of, guys is maybe the wrong term, but people in the IT space who are kind of resistant to change and for good reason. I complimented them last week, I think. But then you've got the decision makers who are saying, hey, that's fun, but we got to move on. So I think that I think the pushback against ARM in the enterprise, such as it is in some ways misguided, because when you think about the things that are important, and that's true whether you're an individual or a business with multiple multiple groups of people, whatever, the Qualcomm-based PCs solve a lot of problems with reliability and security and performance and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's. So we have this one app in manufacturing over here that doesn't work. Great. Well, you could leave Bob on that stupid Intel computer and put the rest of us on the modern thing, is something that could happen.
Yeah. I think I don't see ARM in the enterprise yet.
I know. No, I don't either. I'm just trying to rationalize it. This
not even on laptops, not even mobile.
Well, but I think this is how it happens. I think what happens is someone in a position of decision-making power finally comes down and says, guys, you got to figure this out. These things are way better.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I have multiple review units in that are brand new to me since I've been home from Mexico City. None of them are Snapdragon based. I don't remember the exact number, but there's one Meteor Lake, one Lunar Lake, at least one AMD, maybe two AMDs, whatever. And they're varying degrees of whatever. But one thing they all kind of share in common is they don't always come right on. And the little eye thing from Windows Hello does its little bug eye thing. And then it's like, hold please, or whatever it says, waiting. And then it just fails. And then you have to type in your pen to get in, and that never happens on Snapdragon computers. So I get it. They've made some steps forward, but it's still x64. It's still got all that cruft. And I'm still seeing a lot of the same problems. So yeah, I hear you. But if you like fan noise and you want to heat up your bedroom at night, I mean, an Intel computer is great.
We got a machine for you.
Yeah, we have a bunch of them actually. This is a lot of them. So we'll see. CES is coming up. Obviously, Qualcomm at some point is going to do a Gen 2 on their Snapdragon X stuff. We'll see what happens. But
we're into December now, so the whole idea of this was maybe a 6-month deal has got to be over.
So I was at a press event yesterday in New York, and I was talking to someone else who does what I do, and this is someone I trust, and I don't want to say their name because I'm not sure if this was something they want out publicly, but they have heard now that Qualcomm's exclusivity arrangement with Microsoft has actually been extended. So there are
interesting.
Yeah, so there are rumors that NVIDIA, MediaTek, even AMD are working on designs for PCs, ARM-based designs. ARM Holdings has talked and has formally expanded into PC reference designs that they want OEMs to use as well. And, we'll see. This is just one person, like I said, I trust, but I don't know. I have never heard anything about this directly myself. So I don't know. I will say that even if it is just Qualcomm for whatever amount of time, there's no doubt in my mind that what they did this year is borderline magical. I believe it might have been handed down by aliens. I'm not sure, but
are you being facetious, or are you actually?
No, it's that good. Like I find it painful to not be using a Snapdragon computer.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I just do.
Wow.
I love everything about them.
Well, you'll be happy to know I've sent the lovely dev kit on its way to you.
Oh, thank you.
Santa will be bringing it.
Okay, nice.
Do you have a chimney?
No, we have an electric fireplace.
That's fine. We'll drop it in there.
Okay, just drop it on that. Yep. I wouldn't leave it there, but there's some kind of weird exhaust thing to it. I don't know. Probably prevent us from getting poisoned or something.
The two. No, I'd be very. So you have a choice. Obviously, you have Intel laptops and you have Snapdragon laptops, and for you, is the choice.
This was it was a problem in Mexico because I had these devices to review before I left to come home, and I had a hard time not using the Surface laptop that I brought, and it's a problem now because I'm back and now I have a bunch of them, and how do you you use something that just works. It's silent. The battery life is forever. And then you turn over here and you get punched in the face and you're like, well, I wonder which one I'll use tomorrow. But
are there things you can't do with it that you can do with Intel?
Yeah. So one of the other trends I discussed this past year that I think is notable for this year is that the newer x86 chipsets from Intel and AMD, well, more specifically, I guess maybe the graphics chipsets that are integrated are actually good enough to play AAA games now. And that's kind of amazing. I think that's kind of a game changer. This is an area where Qualcomm has advertised a lot, but I don't think they've really lived up to it. It's just it's a very unreliable experience. I did just install Half-Life 2, which is a 20-year-old game, by the way, on the Snapdragon. It plays fine. Like, it looks beautiful. Like, it's full res, whatever. Everything's on high. But, it's a 20-year-old game. Like, whatever. But it's running in emulation. Seems to work great. Works with a controller, et cetera. But as far as playing, like, the latest Call of Duty or whatever, it's not. I wouldn't even try. That's ridiculous. So maybe they get there eventually. But that's not for everybody. I mean, as far as just general productivity, what I would call mainstream, PC tasks, it's right there. It's great.
Yeah, and the compatibility is only going to get better, and more stuff is going to be compiled for ARM anyway. Like, it's just going to become part. Your normal CI/CD pipeline will include an ARM build. Yeah,
this is when I referenced the basement last week, I think it was, and you hear from someone on social media, I'm like, Intel's dead, x86 is terrible, we got to go past this, and he's like, well, and then some guy will name like an app, say, well, this is like the thing that proves you wrong. It's like this app. So I have to look up the app. I've never heard of it. It's some kind of an audio studio app that, professional musicians or recorders use, whatever. I've never even heard of the thing. I don't remember the name. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess we could just abandon the platform because this one app that nobody uses doesn't work. Or here's an idea. Maybe the makers of that app could port it to ARM and then it would just work better. How does that sound? I mean, we'll get there, I think is the point.
Well, and of course you bring up an audio video app because it gets into all of those wacky drivers that often this software pokes down into ring zero, and it's not going to emulate well. It's going to be problematic.
Yeah, and there's so this will come up in my app pick this week, I think. Let me just check. Yeah. One of the things about Windows and ARM is that Microsoft has very stringent driver requirements there, and companies that are in that space have a hurdle, there as well. Not that they're trying to make it hard on them, but they want this stuff to kind of respect the platform, and do the right thing and work.
We also see Microsoft taking control of drivers in general these days, more and more, because it's just they get the tech support calls. So they're highly incented to just make sure there's a reliable reference driver that works every time, even if it doesn't have every feature.
It might even have a security component to that decision, that driver installers, at least, could be a vector for malware.
Yep.
Or whatever. But
no, it's absolutely a problem.
Yep. Yeah. So,
and it's the nature of not controlling the hardware, right? Like this is your trade. If you live in a walled garden like Apple, of course they build all their drivers. They're the only game in town.
Yeah, right, that's right.
But if you're going to have an ecosystem, then you have to deal with this variation in quality.
Yeah, this was the problem with NT in the early days. Microsoft originally intended to switch over to NT one full version before they did.
It's a big part of the disaster of Vista and the problems in Win 8. Like
that's right.
They changed the driver model.
There was a rumor that Google is switching to Android all in for Chrome OS, but it is not a rumor because they announced it that they're bringing the part of Android to the driver stack to Chrome OS because third-party developer hardware makers support Android explicitly all the time because there are so many of those devices. And Chrome OS sometimes not. So
and this is the argument is because operating systems are less important, we just have no tolerance. Yeah, I have no patience for this. I'm not here to use an OS. I have stuff to do. And so the OS you should comply. And that means consolidation. There should be fewer.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I agree. So 24H2, it's going great. Everything's fine. No worries there.
We're having a fine time.
But they're screwing with it. So we're going to have plenty of problems in 2025. So
when do they start on when do they finally leave that thing alone and move on to the next one?
Yeah. Good question. I don't know. If anyone could figure out the Insider program right now, good, I'd love to hear about it, but they say certain things, beta channel is built off of 23H2 right now. Dev is built off of 24H2 and Canary is like, no. We have no idea. Nobody knows. So, that's where we're at. Speaking of which, there was a new Canary build today. Nothing in it. Nobody knows why they even have it. But three big things have happened over the past, I'm going to call this, well, actually, I was going to say 24 hours, but actually one of these is from last week. So the first one happened yesterday. Microsoft is changing Copilot. What in the notes I say is the 17th time. That's a rough estimate. I think the actual number is closer to 16.
You thought you were exaggerating. But
it's not. It's pretty close. Remember, they rushed this thing to market to get it out into 22H2 before 23H2 came out, forcing it on everybody. It used to be a pain. It's always been a pain, sorry, but a sidebar, if you will, at the side of the screen. At some point, they made it resizable. Then they made it into a window. They moved the icon 3 different times. Then they changed the UI completely and got rid of the Windows integration stuff. And one of the consistent complaints across all of that was like, hey, this thing's actually just a web app, which means you're running an instance of Edge in the background. And that's true even if I choose to use Chrome or Brave or whatever browser I have. So they've made it a native app, and I'm going to put air quotes around native because really it's a native wrapper on the web app. So you still have an instance of Chrome running in the background, still WebView 2. But it has some new functionality. It's a little different looking. It has a new always on top mode called Quick View, which uses the one of the most used keyboard shortcuts in Windows, which is Alt Space. I think Alt Space is popular because it's what Apple uses essentially. They have a different name for that key, but it's the same keyboard for their, I'm sure they call it Spotlight Search. So if you want to launch an app without, going and clicking through stuff, you can just hit Alt, well, it's whatever it's called, Command, whatever that squiggly thing is, space.
Yeah.
And then the bar comes up in the middle and you type. So PowerToys Run uses this UI. I think there's a Stardock tool that uses it as well. By default, uses that keyboard shortcut. So they'll respect the keyboard shortcut if you're using it somewhere else. But if you aren't using it, they'll give it to Copilot now instead of Windows key plus C, which no one is using and it used to use because, Microsoft. But anyway, this thing runs on top of other windows, and that's kind of the point. So you were in the middle of doing something and you want to access Copilot, Alt Space, you type over here, Alt Space to close it again or just escape, I guess. And then you're back in the app, and it's sort of that side-by-side experience without it taking up the space on the side. So you just kind of get it when you want it.
Nice.
And this one is available in all of the Insider channels right now, which is something they've been starting to do this past year. Instead of working its way, Canary Dev down through the channel, they're like, well, just, machine gun it to all the channels at once and release it in 2 days,
Yeah. What could go wrong?
Nothing's ever gone wrong with Copilot, so they should work out fine.
If they had to revert them all too, then what?
Yeah.
The reversion rules are different.
That's right. Speaking, well, I don't have this in notes, but Michael Rander was telling me on Twitter X that he's had a computer in the release preview for months with the checkbox, get me out of this when this thing is released. And it's just, this is one of the problems with the Insider program. It just never hits that little milestone.
Well,
nothing is ever done.
The real question is of the folks that are working in that space right now, who even knows how to do that, or that they should, right?
I know.
Like,
this is the entire point of the Foundation trilogy. It's like we have this technology from the past and nobody knows how it works, and it just kind of, some of it persists. And I don't know, they really got to fix that, because I like the idea of people going into the Insider program to test things. I think it's a good thing to do if you want to, but they need to give you that exit hatch. And the problem is it's in the UI and it just doesn't work. And to me, that's beyond irresponsible. That's just not right. Okay, so there's that. And then late last week, probably on Friday, Microsoft released a new build of the dev channel that adds support for recall. And let me turn off the spotlight on my face. And click to do for AMD and Intel-based Copilot Plus PCs, meaning those based on Zen 5 or Lunar Lake or newer, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So it's and one update. So if you already installed this, like I had done with a Snapdragon X computer, you update to this new build, and now click to do works outside of recall. And so the way this worked before for that one build was, recall is sitting there taking screenshots or snapshots of your system. You can go flip through them and look for things, search, etc. If you get to a screen that has text on it, whether it's text in a graphic or just text that was on the screen, like a web page or whatever, click to do kicks in, and it does that kind of purple pink animation that's suddenly very common to all AIs. And all of the text is highlighted. Then you get these actions you can do, right click to do things with that text, right? So that's cool, but that's the type of thing that should work like everywhere, right? It shouldn't be locked into recall. And so in this new build, click to do kind of escapes the confines of recall. Now that works everywhere. And there's a kind of a fun, let me see if I think it's just hold down the window key and click the mouse button, and wherever it is on screen, the mouse cursor, it will do that little like kind of a rippling water, purple and pink animation. Oh. And then it looks at whatever app that is, looks for all the text, gives you that little animated selection view, and then you get those options and you can do all that.
So
kind of stuff.
Magic.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Not the first time Arthur C. Clarke has rolled in his grave, but whatever. I will just point out, because I feel obligated to, for all the haters, haven't heard any security problems with recall, even though it's out in the public. It's kind of weird. And we'll talk about that actually after whatever ad break as well. But I just feel obligated to say, we were so concerned about this thing, and
context matters.
Nothing. Yeah, it's working fine. Right before we started the show, Microsoft released yet another thing, I think, across all Windows Insider channels, which is new support for the iPhone in the Phone Link app. So today the iPhone is pretty basic compared to Android. In fact, it's incredibly basic. I think you get text messaging, but not group messages. There's all these limitations. You can the photo stuff is gone, but you can get that through the Photos app. And I think it might be, maybe phone calls and then notifications, which is pretty useless. But they're adding support for file sharing. So I tried to get this, and I haven't. It's one of those CFR type features, so it's not really.
You don't know what machine it'll show up on.
I don't have it on any right now, so I'm trying.
Should I try it here? I wonder if I can.
Yeah. So so if you have a machine that's in the Insider program.
Oh, I don't. So
yeah, that's the first thing. It could be any channel. And then you have to, I believe you're probably going to get a Phone Link app updates, which I, by the way, got one this morning. I thought this must be it.
I did get one this morning. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was to support this, but it's just not enabled. It's one of those features. They have to flip a switch or whatever.
Right.
So this is going to work similarly to that feature that they just released in 24H2 for Android phones, which is that you'll be able to share files between, in this case, the iPhone and your PC without having to go through like a UI.
That's nice.
Inside of the app.
Yeah, Phone Link works kind of better with Android, but it kind of works with But it does. I mean, it does some stuff. We were talking about this yesterday. Steve Gibson wanted a way to do text messaging on his Windows PC from his iPhone. Right. And I think it would work fine. I think it does work fine for that.
It does.
Yeah.
That's right. It works. I mean, I would say
fine is maybe a bridge too far.
Well, there are things that don't work. So you can't go like when you connect it to a PC, you don't get all your previous conversations. They don't show up like they do on Android. If it's a group text, the text will appear as individual text between two people instead of the group.
That's weird.
That doesn't,
okay, so it's not perfect.
It's not perfect because it's Apple, but yeah, better than.
Oh, you blame Apple?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. Microsoft blamed Apple. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
they would have implemented that 2 years ago.
Apple isn't. Yeah, that makes sense. They're not.
Apple has their own way, and they're not real sherry.
Yeah,
they're not, exactly. And then also, this happened so recently, I didn't have time to even write about it. But Microsoft announced today they're bringing the full Windows 11 experience, or they have brought the full Windows 11 experience to Meta Quest 3 and 3S.
What does that mean?
And what does that mean? So it's, like I said, I haven't even had time to look at this, but what I believe it means is that you get a Windows 11 desktop and floating in space. You can click on it, but I mean, looking at the pictures, it also looks like there's kind of like individual app capabilities as well. But there's one screen where he's got 3 different desktops and different app floating in each, 3 taskbars, etc. So. Yeah, I don't know. Remember that there was a couple of years ago, probably Microsoft announced they were bringing Microsoft 365 to Meta. Meta briefly had their own kind of productivity apps and services they were going to do on Quest rather. And then they got rid of that. And I think this kind of paved the way for Microsoft to kind of go in a little deeper on this partnership. So you can access a local Windows PC, basically stream it. Or if you have a Windows 365 cloud PC up in the cloud, you can stream that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like the idea of no visible screen, right? That I just put on a pair of goggles and can figure a way, as long as I can touch type, because I can't see where my hands are.
Right. That's right. Is that true? I don't know. I've not used one. I'm not really sure. Is it kind of an AR experience where you can see through it?
No, it's VR. Yeah.
No, it's VR.
They're VR headsets.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, Microsoft's not really doing their own mixed reality stuff anymore. So they've partnered with the obvious choice.
HoloLens is in an interesting state of suspension. They have a bunch of products out there that people are using. So they've held on to the last of their HoloLenses to replace units that fail. They're not willing to sell to any new customers now. They don't want to restart the production line.
I know.
And last time I talked to anybody there, they're like, we're waiting for better hardware. Right. Chips.
Yeah. Which is actually the last thing I heard too. Same thing. Yep. Yep. They had a minor update ready to go. And it was just like, we don't feel like this is enough of a jump to bother.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the military distracted them in HoloLens. Like there was a HoloLens 3. It was the one built for the Army that they canceled the last minute.
Right. They canceled for everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
This week's 24H2 issue of the week is that the Google Workspace Sync plugin for Outlook, and I believe this is Outlook Classic, but look based on the screenshot.
There is only one Outlook. Classic. Then there are terrible pretenders, some of which are made by Microsoft.
We're going to talk about that, Richard. Yeah. Okay, so get out of the basement, buddy. No, is not working. So there's, because it's 24H2, it's terrible. There was an update under the covers to the Microsoft Store last week that allows Win32 app makers to opt into a system where the store will manage app updates. So what that means is that in the very beginning, they were all modern apps. Everything happened through the store. That was the deal. Remember, you could do like a one-click install, one-click uninstall. Nothing was left behind, all that kind of stuff. And then over time, they've added support for all these different app types. So now if you have like a Win32 web browser like Firefox or Chrome or whatever, you can put that in the store if you want, no problem. But after you install it from the store, it's up to that app to maintain whatever the updates are, right? And so, browsers are a good example of an app that has their own updating system, et cetera. But honestly, that one of the key advantages of the store is that it handles this stuff. It handles it automatically. It happens in the background. You don't have to think about it. It's nice. For example, when we start this show every week, Notion always has an update now for some reason. I have to update Notion, and then Discord always has an update. So it's like I sit down at this computer, I launch these apps. It's like you got to install an update. Like, here we go. So the store helps get rid of that little phenomenon, but I don't know how this works. In fact, it was just announced, but basically, if you want to allow the store to update your app, it will do it for you. It uses Winget somehow under the covers, which is interesting. I always saw Winget and the Microsoft Store not merging. I don't mean that, but being ever more complementary, that the store is what Microsoft always wanted for its kind of servers, which was that it's really just this command line environment, but the store in this case is the UI, the front end that people can click on if they're,
Winget is your command line way to do updates, and so store is the repository.
So store is going to kind of handle that.
There's another context here, which is the battle over updating company machines, right? They're deprecating WSUS.
Right.
There's like 4 different ways to do updates, but there's generally a push to, you should do this to the store with whitelisting or blacklisting. Like, that's what they want, except that none of their customers want it. But
well, and then this business segment you're talking about is the type of the audience that's going to have a lot of Win32 apps, and those apps are going to have their own updating model, et cetera. Right. So
if they're
this way, it's like the repository, like you said, where you require the app is the store,
right?
But then it's almost like a middleman that sits there and it just runs Winget update against the app, just to manage the update. And like I said, however it works, whatever you have to do as a developer, I don't know, but I would imagine this is going to be a lot simpler.
Well, and there's an angle on this about supply chain attacks, but we have no evidence that Microsoft's going to be especially careful with what's in their store, right? Like, you blocked a supply chain attack by being.
I mean, if Microsoft had a rich history of screwing up security, I might agree with you. Oh, wait.
There was a time when they were doing it well. It's just not this time.
Yep. I think that time might be now, by the way. They're doing pretty good right now.
Yeah.
But, it required them to get kicked in the face a couple of times.
Again.
Which is what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're a little bit like the TSA in that regard. It's like, okay, we got the message. We'll start solving that problem now. We'll see what happens. But I don't know. This seems like a pretty good idea to me.
Yeah. It's a long, careful process because you've got to go through folks that have spent a long time building up an update infrastructure they trust. To say, okay, now in some ways they've even forgotten what was important about the way they were doing it.
Exactly.
You got to say, do you have the original set of requirements?
This is the exchange thing again, right? It's like, did you start your company to manage an email infrastructure? Or are you selling widgets here? So
do
it's
you
like,
really need to host your own update infrastructure? Is that the best way to do this?
I mean, the more that you can hand off,
right?
It's like as an app developer, I can put my app in the store for free. They don't even have to manage a website, let pay for that, right? And then I can have them manage the update infrastructure. Yeah, this sounds excellent to me.
Right up until you take the whole company down. Then it's not funny anymore, right?
Yeah. You're so serious, Richard.
Well, I mean, the upside to that is then you can blame Microsoft for being down. Like, that's the whole reason people use cloud in the first place. It gives you somebody else's fault, right?
Right.
But you still, that this is what it makes admins jumpy, is an update came out in the middle of the night. I didn't properly configure controls over that. It deployed, and now my ticket center is filled with tickets.
This is the conversation I had with that guy on whatever social network, which is he's waking up to that in Windows.
Yeah.
I mean, we can joke all we want about, Microsoft changing the location of the Copilot icon on the taskbar.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you have real human beings turn on the computer and they're like, what the frick? What is this? And they're calling or texting or whatever they do to get help, and
they're putting out tickets,
wasting time and spending money.
It's a great one. Showing up at the office, and there's 300 tickets sitting in there, and there were none when you left the office last night.
Yes, I experience a minor version of that when I look at my comments every morning. It's great.
There you go.
It's great. Let me get the coffee, and then I'm just going to throw it in my face. A lot of face damage today for some reason. Okay. And then, tied to the year-end stuff I've been going through, I've noticed something interesting. In fact, I think I noticed this first on the Surface laptop, which is a Windows on ARM machine, which is that because of the way I do things, I often go back and use other products instead of the ones I prefer, right? So I'll use other web browsers instead of Brave or, whatever. I do this kind of thing a lot. I'm always, trying to keep up on this stuff. And then when it's something that's in Windows and is in the book, and Edge is a complicated one for me because I hate it with a hot burning passion, but also I have several chapters in the book about it. I have to kind of, stay up on it. So, sometimes I suck it up and I run Edge. And I've noticed something with Edge lately, and that something is that it doesn't really suck anymore. And there's there's always been this kind of duality in the Microsoft space. It's true in Office / Microsoft 365. It's true in Windows. It's true in Edge, where they support some form of you sign in with an account and it syncs your settings.
Right.
Except it only syncs some of your settings. And so, for example, Microsoft Word, which is an app I used over 30 years, basically, does not save the configuration that I put it into, which involves a bunch of things going through options and going through the different dialogues. And I have to kind of redo that every time I run that app. Now, there actually is a way to save that, but just bear with me on that one. Windows is the same thing. Windows 8 introduced a bunch of really good setting sync capabilities. It got better in Windows 10, and then in Windows 11, they started taking them away. And so there's less than ever, and it's not transparent. It's actually not really clear what settings sync. So if you do things like customize your taskbar, uninstall certain built-in apps, that's not syncing. Every time you sign into a new computer or whatever, you're getting the stock, experience. That's kind of what they want. So Edge works the same way. So
I find every time you get an OS update, it goes back too.
That's exactly, which is tied into this app I'm still working on, which is basically like you could think of it as a user state vigilance tool. Like you reboot after a OS update or a monthly update, whatever it is, and then it says, hey, by the way, they changed this configuration over here, right? Like this is something I actually need because I'm trying to understand that list as well. Like not just the list of things that actually do sync, but the list of things Microsoft resets after an update, because they do absolutely do that.
For sure.
So Edge is exactly the same. There are certain, in fact, there's a million features in there. It's a little daunting, but there are certain features that don't sync. So for example, if you like the workspace icon up in the title bar there, if you don't use that feature, you get rid of it and you go to a different computer, it's back, And so there's kind of 100 of those things. So I spend that time and I go through the UI, and I don't like using sleeping tabs, for example, but whatever. I turn things off, I turn things on, I change things. I use the Google search engine instead of Bing and whatever. And then you get to this thing that's pretty good. Like it's pretty minimal, it's not bad. But I've noticed that this thing is actually really fast, which is not something I've said about Edge possibly ever. Maybe the very first release of the Chromium Edge, because it was so stripped down, maybe that was pretty fast. But it's, it's kind of big and heavy and slow and whatever.
Bulked up, yeah.
Yeah, so I have this vague memory that they were working on something with this regard. And sure enough, back in May, they announced that they were replacing bits of the UI with this new technology, which speeds things up dramatically, like double or triple X performance improvements. And they're just doing like one component at a time. And they've never talked about it since, so I don't have anything I can point to and say, hey, this is definitely changed. But here's what I can tell you. When you open something, like if you open the menu and go to Browser Essentials, that thing appears so fast, it almost makes a sound. Like it's almost like bam. And one of the things that like objectively has always been slower in Edge and just kind of bothered me was history, which is Control H, and downloads, which is Control J. In Edge are these kind of weird floating panes. Yeah. And in Chrome and other Chromium browsers, you're just full window,
just another window. Yeah.
Yeah. Those things appear really fast. Mm-hmm. Like if you type Control J, you can see it it almost like jumps out at you.
It's excited about it.
Yeah. It's really, this has not been the experience. So they've actually done something and they did talk about it, but I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to like experience it. Like I've read it. I wrote about it. And I'm like, whatever, I still hate it. And I used Edge on a couple of, one computer. Then I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if it's just on ARM. I used it on x64. No, this thing, it's better. Like it's actually working better.
I mean, the main thing I've noticed with Edge these days is I don't notice I'm using Edge, right? Like there was a time there where it's like, oh, dang, I opened this in an Edge browser. Right. Like that's why it's being weird.
And there are things to like about Edge. If you like the Windows 11 aesthetic, which is kind of a combination of, general style, the way things look, but also just the fonts and the menu, that settings and more menu in Edge is the correct kind of size and scale for the OS based on your setting. Whereas in Brave, it's just like this tiny 2-point thing, you can barely see it.
Maybe it's because Brave isn't so good or something.
No, Brave doesn't spend a lot of time on the front end. But it's not just Brave, because I've also been using, like right now, for example, I'm using Chrome. And the Chrome menu is also just a fixed size. It's nothing special. But if you compare the size of that menu in Chrome or Brave or whatever browser,
this seems about right.
Edge,
this is Edge.
Yeah, it seems it's correct. Like it's bigger, but it should be bigger. Like these things are not scaling. You know, Edge, all browsers support like a UI scale kind of a feature, obviously. Does not impact that menu. It should.
Yeah.
And so Edge, that's one thing Edge has always gotten right, which I really like.
Yeah, because I always scale everything big.
Yeah.
But the menu stays the same.
The menu stays small. And that's where you really notice it. And so on Edge, to me, I don't know, you can see it for yourself. Just, it looks, to me, it looks correct. It's definitely bigger, is the way I would say it, the text. And, you know, whatever. There's, you know, they do text rendering a little different, although I think they've shared that with Chromium since now.
I mean, it's just a browser. Browsers are browser, right? I mean,
Leo. No, I mean, yes.
Are we looking a little too deeply at the size of the fonts in the menu? I mean,
well, if you're 58 years old and you can't read it, no. I mean,
I guess you're right. Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, it's like, wow, I could like this, you know, to me, Edge, you know, everything is every relationship, you know, is like pros and cons. And then sometimes when they're negative enough, that's when you kind of walk away. And for me, Edge has been in that negative category. But lately I've been looking at it, and this is a big turnaround for me because I wrote an entire chapter of the book about how to fix all the stupid stuff they screw up.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think it's slid over, you know. The other one that might fall into this category for some people, not for me, but it's only because I use web-based email, is the new Outlook, which is the subject of more hate than maybe anything Microsoft has done since, I don't know, Bob, or I don't even know what this equates to.
It's not just hate, it's mockery, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's. I think it might be the unicorns and the flowers in the UI. It might be. It's a little too cheerful or something.
It's very pretty.
It's very. I love how much you can customize this thing. I really do. Like, it's kind of crazy how beautiful it can be. I don't like using an app for email and stuff, but it, you know, it's Outlook, so it's email, calendar, contacts, to do, you know, all this stuff.
It's going to make Outlook familiar. Should I let it make Outlook familiar?
I would not allow that. What we're going to do is like double the resource requirements. It's going to load.
I want the generic look. So this is the generic look.
Yeah,
the one.
But go into like I'm just sticking to just the look and feel of it. Like, don't select don't open an email.
It's pretty.
But but go up to the whatever the menu is and go to settings and go to just customize
this is
UI.
Really weird. This toolbar. Okay. And now I can customize the look.
At general, probably, and then whatever
appearance.
the appearance. Yeah, like
unicorns. Yeah.
No, but I mean, but honestly, like these, it can be quite attractive. You know, it's actually pretty nice.
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know,
it's better than the old way it was.
Yeah. So the problem with this app, the big problem to me is that if you don't have a paid Microsoft 365 account, commercial or consumer, you're going to see ads, and those ads will appear as if they were email messages. And
that's not good.
I do not like that.
Yeah.
But I'm paying for it, so that's not a big deal. I know there are certain features that businesses rely on that either are half implemented or aren't quite there yet. But if you haven't done it, there was a great, there was an Outlook session at Ignite. It's worth watching. They've made a lot of strides toward the stuff that they want businesses want. They're going to start making it opt out for small businesses in early 2025, but not for big businesses.
At least it put its own Microsoft Store ad in the junk mail.
Yeah,
At least it had the courtesy of
ads on
doing
Outlook, which is the hilarious, side story to this, right? Like they're all like house ads,
Unsubscribe, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, now I have to go to a website.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to do that.
In Edge, probably.
In Edge. Okay.
But anyway, look, I'm not going to use the new Outlook, but other than because I have to write about it for the book. But
it is pretty.
I look at it and I'm like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to take me a while to get used to this ribbon up here. So
if you're an old school Outlook guy, you can turn it to the old ribbon too.
That's what I should have said, right? That's that was my option when they said, "Do you want it to be like the old way?" I should have said yes.
No.
I want to try the new way. I could change my density.
Yep.
I like that. Roomy.
You are my density.
All right. I'm going to switch on this machine.
It's pretty.
Jeez, I did. Sorry, I wasn't actually trying.
We weren't advocating
I
anything.
I will. I'll message you and curse you. I know where you live.
I hate it.
Well, I've got the writing machine, which is I'll stay with the old one, but on the video machine.
What do you use on your phone? Do you use Microsoft Outlook?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't have choice there. It's bad no matter what you do, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just a question
at
of
least
levels
it's consistently
of pain.
bad on iOS and Android.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like about Outlook Classic. Like, yes, I hate this thing, but it's the hate I know, right?
Yeah.
Now what you've done is you've made this, hey, I do not need unicorns in my email. Like, please.
It is a weird fact of history that they updated Outlook on the Mac years ago.
Yeah,
like 3 years ago-ish, whatever it was. And I don't use that either, but my understanding is that app's pretty damn good. Like, it's supposed to be really good. And I would imagine on the Mac, it's not like this web app like we have in Windows. Like, this is the new way on Windows. But on the Mac, it's probably just like a native Xcode app, whatever. And I think they were trying to go for a similar experience on Windows, but they're using web technologies, but which freaks people out for some reason.
It definitely feels React-y, right? Like,
yeah. But the thing is, they moved to the web model, React, whatever, for Office and Outlook extension add-ins, whatever, years ago. So, I mean, making the whole thing consistent.
Well, and one of the things you got to think of in terms of is dev resources, right?
Yep.
These React devs don't want to write code in C++ anymore. Like, they just don't.
Although I have to say, I look at JavaScript code and I'm like, it's like, yikes.
I'm sorry, you said JavaScript and code in the same sentence, and everybody got a little bit.
Well, hey, look, I came up out of Visual Basic. I've been dealing with that, kind of thing for a long time. But
I've got lots of friends doing advent of code and doing each different event in a different language.
Oh,
yes,
funny.
I've seen people do that.
I was hoping you were going to say they were doing
polyglot version.
Doing it in like Visual Basic 6. Just
none of them in JavaScript. Oh, no. One of the guys did it in GW Basic. I think he did number 2 in GW Basic.
Yeah, you could do number 2 in GW Basic. I wouldn't want to do recursive stuff in GW Basic.
No.
You should tell them we have a private leaderboard for the Club TWiT if anyone wants. Yeah. Advent of Code is so much fun. I actually streamed my first 4 days live. No, 5. I can't remember. But then it got hard. And so I'm not going to let anybody see me trying to solve it. No. And it's going to be in one line. The two scariest things you could do in life is kind of open your heart to another human being. That's number 2. And number 1 is letting people see your source code.
Code in public.
God. And it's like, yikes.
Very,
and it's like people are like, are you some kind of a freaking idiot? Which is not what you want to hear from either one of those audiences. But like,
well, I think it's one thing to put the code up on GitHub where other people could see it, but to stream while you write
it was scary.
Well, this is Jeff.
But I just acknowledge that I'm not a pro. I'm just I'm messing around.
I try to every time I write anything about this, I always try to stress like just as a reminder.
Remember, I'm a writer, not a coder.
Exactly.
It actually went pretty well. I solved them all in real time under 2 hours, and
that's great.
It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of help from
I've never done this.
Coders. Advent of Code is super fun, but it's challenging. I mean, it really
gets harder. Like no two ways about
every
it.
day gets harder. So there's 25 days. It's an Advent calendar, and we're in day 11. And there's 2 parts to each day.
Okay.
The nice thing about it, if you're
doing
a
little
real
chocolate
time,
at the end, is that
there's no chocolate.
There's no chocolate.
No booze. Nothing.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Just but it is. You know what? It's a big dopamine rush when you do write the code.
Oh,
they don't ask for your code. They just ask for the answer. And you put in the answer.
It's like a Udacity course or something. It's like you got the answer.
And you get a gold star when you're right. So that's even better.
Yeah.
And your input set is different from person to person. So
everybody has it. So you can't
take someone else's output and put it to yours. In fact, it's in there. If you do that, it goes, this is correct, but for somebody else's output.
Does it say that?
Yeah.
Oh,
and it literally asks you, like, you wouldn't be cheating, would you?
That's somebody else's answer you're giving us. There's the guy who does this, Eric Wastel, is quite
so
impressive.
Brilliant. So brilliant. Yeah.
He's brilliant.
That's cool.
And there are a lot of coding challenges out there, but I think this is the best. It's the one I look forward to all year. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
And I am not by any means. I haven't finished. I've never gotten all 25.
Well, I am deeply immersed in a REST interface to have current tide data show up in Home Assistant.
Yeah,
so,
you should stick with that.
Yeah,
That's hard enough.
And it's Python, so I'm hating myself at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Well, okay, but at least all the AIs seem like they're optimized for Python, so you could at least get help. If
I
you
am
needed
getting
it.
help.
Oh, yeah. In fact, Stephen was talking about this yesterday on Security Now. He actually asked an assembly language question of ChatGPT and got an interesting little conversation and eventually useful code.
Wow.
This is not a complex thing. I'm not trying to say that, but in thinking about taking my .NET Pad app to a multi-tab interface, right? One of the things I have to do is, I've got the system where there are certain states that are like the document name, is it saved, et cetera, that are just global to the app, but now have to be individual to each tab, right? So it's dynamic. You don't know how many they're going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, I'm going to have to make like a class, like a C# class for this. So I did it, and it seems like it's working great.
Wow.
And then I published an article about it. And then the next day I was like, Anthropic came out with an announcement. They said, hey, we're good. It's better for this now. And I'm like, So I wrote a really detailed, I want a class in C#, and it was exactly the same. And I was like, nice.
Good.
Yeah. That was a nice little.
That's affirming. Yeah.
Yeah. That was really
I'm
nice.
as
And now,
smart as the
again,
AI.
it's simple. I'm not trying to prop myself up too much, but it was really nice to have that happen.
I always wonder when I'm looking at code generated by an AI if it's just somebody else's code that it ingested.
Entirely possible.
Yeah.
With some tokenization
it's
changes.
still the correct answer on Stack Overflow as a service is still worth paying for. Have you ever anyone who has ever spent time and then you're like, okay, this is going to be it, definitely. Like, no, that doesn't work. And then you read for it, like, oh, someone already said it doesn't work. And then and 2 hours later, you're like, what was I doing? Like that's the typical Stack Overflow. Yeah, I mean, we've all done this.
Way down the rabbit hole.
Yep. So yeah, I'm sure you're right.
And you always have that moment where you step back and you're like, am I even attacking this the right way? Like, why am I doing this?
Well, that's 50% of the answers on Stack Overflow are, I don't even know why you're trying to do this.
Yes.
And it's like, dude, listen.
I am. Just trust me. I need to do Yeah.
Thanks for the help.
That's why we recommend our sponsor, Experts Exchange, because you don't get that weird, like.
Yeah. That happens. That is so common. Yeah, so common. Yep.
Or answered 10 years ago.
Yeah, this was answered in another
that?
thread. Yeah, why didn't you? Because I'm not omniscient or whatever.
Omniscient.
Like something.
All right, let's take a little time out and come back with lots more of this chocolatey goodness that you think of as Windows
This daily
Weekly.
chocolatey goodness.
It's so good. We are going to do it again. By the way, the next show will be a week from today. It'll be just the 18th. But the following show, we're not going to do
I was like, that was quite a cliffhanger there. Our next show, will be next week, actually.
It'll be next week. But then they'll have Christmas Day off. Will be a best of, which the elves are working on right now. And then it's New Year's Day. So you're going to have a couple of days off.
I was out with somebody and we were talking about the holidays and someone said something about Christmas being on a Wednesday. And I was like, wait, what?
What?
I'm like, obviously the way the calendar works is this had to have happened before. I cannot remember having a Christmas off. I can't. Like both of those days.
8 years ago. Yeah.
Well, that's what my wife said. She, the smart one was like, well, Paul, he's like every 8 years. Blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, thanks.
But yeah, who remembers 8 years ago?
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's not, I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you get 2 weeks off. Just
remember that. I'm probably just going to sit here and talk for 3 hours to myself. I don't know what to do.
Me too. What do you think? I just come up in my attic and I turn on the lights. And go,
It's like,
hey, everybody.
Maybe I'll just log in and we can talk to each other.
Yeah. Like Richard's actually there.
Show.
Like, what's going on?
We should do a show, just not record it or stream it.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you guys doing on Christmas Day?
Nothing. Watching football, probably.
I don't know.
Our show today brought to you by those wonderful folks at Threat Locker. You ought to know about Threat Locker if you are in business and there are threats. There are, to 0-day exploits. Microsoft patched one yesterday. And supply chain attacks keep you up at night. Well, they should be probably, but I have a way you can get a good night's sleep. Harden your security with Threat Locker. Worldwide companies like JetBlue trust Threat Locker to secure their data and keep their business operations flying high. And, if you check it out, you'll see First of all, great reviews from all over, but you'll also see it's very affordable. It is the easiest, most affordable way to set up a zero trust on your network. And I think this is exactly the right way to protect your most valuable stuff. Imagine taking a proactive, and this is the key, deny by default approach to cybersecurity. That means every action is blocked. Every process is blocked. Every user is blocked. Nothing can happen unless authorized by your team. So, it's not, the opposite of a blacklist. It's a whitelist. You only say, you explicitly say they could do this and this, but not that. And that is, I think I first heard of zero trust when Google started using it. It is the best way to protect your network. And the great thing about ThreatLocker, it not only does this, it gives you a full audit of every action. So this is great for risk management and compliance. Their 24/7 US-based support team fully supports you getting started, onboarding, and beyond. So what you're doing is you are protecting your network completely, right? You're stopping the exploitation of trusted applications inside your organization. You're keeping your business secure. You're fully protected from ransomware. Organizations in any industry can benefit from ThreatLocker's ring fencing. Ring fencing isolates critical and trusted applications from unintended uses or weaponization. It also limits, this is so cool, attackers' lateral movement within your network. It's like a brick wall. It's so good. ThreatLocker's ring fencing was able to foil a number of attacks the traditional EDR couldn't. You remember the SolarWinds Orion attack? Remember how many companies were bit by that? Well, what you probably didn't read was it was completely foiled by ring fencing. Companies using ring fencing had not a fear, not a worry, not a care in the world. ThreatLocker works for Macs too, so your whole network can be protected. Get unprecedented visibility and control of your cybersecurity quickly, easily, and I have to say I was blown away by how cost-effective it is. Very affordable. ThreatLocker's Zero Trust Endpoint Protection Platform offers a unified approach to protecting users, devices, and networks against the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities. Doesn't matter if you've never heard of it. ThreatLocker blocks it. Get a free 30-day trial. Learn more about how ThreatLocker can help mitigate unknown threats and, at the same time, ensure compliance. Visit threatlocker.com. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly. And we thank you for supporting Windows Weekly by going to that site. And if they say, hey, where did you hear about ThreatLocker? You say, well, I heard it on Windows Weekly. Threatlocker.com. We thank them for their support. All right. I've been playing with Outlook, by the way, since and I put my fast mail in it. It downloaded. It was very quick. I actually kind of like this. You're right.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's
it
what
ain't
I mean.
half bad.
It's astonishing, like how much hate this thing gets. And when I use it, I'm like, honestly, this is pretty good. Now
this is not the Office Outlook though. This is the Outlook that comes with Windows, right?
That's right, but it's going to replace the Office Outlook.
Oh, it is
over the next couple of years. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I got fixated on when Christmas Day falls on a Wednesday.
And was it 8 years ago?
It's not as regular as you think because of leap years. It throws
right.
It
That's
off,
why I
right?
said 8, not 7. Because
so 2019 was the previous one, and 2013 was the one before that.
6 years. Okay,
but the next one will be 2030.
Right,
and then it doesn't happen again until 2041.
Yikes!
Oh, I won't be here for that.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm thinking probably not.
Are you already booking
reason I know that is
booking that day off?
I ran an app that said I'll be dead. My death day is March 17th, 2041. So I won't be here for that one.
I see. Well, we'll do Advent of Code or whatever it's called in your honor.
Do it without me. Although, if I am here for that, celebrate good times.
Yeah, you might be
something
you might just be a
awesome has
machine
happened in the
model,
medical
though,
space.
right?
I think that's a very possible. AI is moving quick. It might be any day now.
By 2040, we just have a copy of Leo and some
Replace
software.
me. Yeah.
I mean, the great news is we can reboot them too, so that's excellent.
It'd just be like the two Google voices going, hey, so today there was a story about this thing. It was really interesting.
Wow, Windows 29. It's awesome. Have you tried the new Outlook 100?
He's like, so I should reboot it now? Okay, boop. And he's gone.
It's just
like the real
Leo
one.
Did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I know how they trained it.
He'd still be in the Insiders program.
Wow, that's a remarkably accurate reproduction.
No, don't press the button. Oh, God.
Paul's referring to something that happened many years ago, before leap year was.
It's hard to imagine. You might talk about like one time. One time you were in the cottage and then you moved to this other studio. But I think of it as more like at one time this whole thing was run off of a laptop that he was using during the recording of the podcast, which. In retrospect, maybe wasn't the smartest.
I had Audition running on a laptop, that Windows laptop that was both recording and doing all the stuff, and it got a Windows update. And I said, Paul, should I hit return?
And I was like, no, not now. And he's like, okay, I'm clicking. I'm like, no, don't.
The whole thing went away.
Show just died. The whole show just
Leo's
disappeared.
gone. He'll be back once it reboots. Leo's exactly where you left him.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about Recall, shall we?
Yeah. So I mentioned that Recall is now available on x64 in the dev channel, right? Not for everybody, and only on the latest Copilot Plus PC
hardware
PCs. Yeah. I have spoken in the past about how Microsoft and third parties keep talking about all these changes they supposedly made to it, but I can also point you to the documentation from May and say, I'm actually not sure they made any substantive technical changes to Recall, but it is still important that it's opt-in, not opt-out, right? Which is the model we should follow.
I really wonder how many users there actually are, right?
It's probably not too many.
Yeah, because how many Copilot Plus PC machines are out in the wild?
Yeah.
And then how many other?
Yeah, it's small. And then how many people, and then what subset of that is putting them in the Insider program?
Right.
Very small.
Very small.
That said, I mean, it's been a lot there. This is another one of those things for all the hate. In this case, there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, actually, I'd like to use this thing. And, they're not super loud about it like the haters are, but so there's some people are doing it. I'm doing it, certainly. Like I said earlier, the security stuff's pretty quiet. You don't hear anything. I regardless of the number of people using it, those security researchers, the guys that were all over this thing, like, cockroaches, you have to think they've been, all over it and don't hear anything from those guys.
Not so sure because those types don't tend not to have the hardware. It's one thing to snatch a copy of the code and run it your own way and break the snot out of it. It's another thing to actually go.
You think they're even lazier than I think they are. That's interesting. Okay, fair enough.
Are they lazy or are they broke?
They can be both. But I will say in using Recall, actually, there are problems with this thing. They have nothing to do with, they have everything to do with security, or they have a lot to do with security, but not the problems people are imagining. The user experience is terrible, actually. And the biggest problem with it is that anytime you do anything, you have to authenticate with Windows Hello. And it's Windows Hello ESS, right? So it's, that more secure thing. It's the secure underpinnings, yada, yada, yada. But, it's like you close the app and you're like, oh, wait, I want to go back. And it's like, oh, you got to authenticate again. And the way that it works is it doesn't just authenticate you. You have to then click the button to okay it. Kind of like the way Windows Hello works in Chrome, if anyone does that to protect their access to their
or any FIDO key implementation. Good Lord,
it's a pain.
Terrible.
It's not great. And then the other issue is just the UI itself is kind of amateurish. I mean, it's kind of weird. If anyone's ever used file history in Windows, I don't know when that debuted, 7, probably 7, 8, 10, whatever. It's that. It's the same UI. It's not great. And it takes a ton of screenshots. I will say the screenshots don't take up that much space. That was one of the big worries, right? And so on my computer, I think I have a terabyte of storage, and I haven't changed anything in this regard. So I think the default storage it sets aside for this thing is like 150 gigabytes. It can use. It's not using all of it. It's only using about, I think it was 2 gigabytes or something like that. And I'm not ever aging out screenshots or anything. I'm keeping everything. So it's not really taking up that much space. I mean, that was one of the big concerns too, non-security concerns. But the UI, like I said, back in May, when I talked to a guy who claimed to have created this thing, I said, yeah, I got some questions for you. And he's like, here we go. And I'm like, no, these are not the questions you think. To me, because I use multiple computers, and I think a lot of people use multiple devices regardless, for this to be truly useful, I don't want my activities locked to a single device. I want them across all my devices.
This is what's unfortunate. It's like the security scare made it less
Well,
useful.
But to be fair to Microsoft, they were doing this before the security scare, right?
Yes.
They said, look, we know that, and we will do that.
Yeah.
And we will have controls for enterprises and all that stuff. It was going to come out in a preview, like it, and it is now only in a preview. So their point was like, we know we have to be secure with this thing, so we're going to lock it down. It's going to be local only on the device. And I was like, yep. And that is completely useless to me. He's like, yeah, no, I hear you. Like, I get it. Like, don't worry, we'll get there. But
well,
we have
and there's the whole enterprise side of this, which I just think could be huge.
Yeah. So in the enterprise, like their initial, this reminds me very much of Windows Phone. It was like not almost. It was literally antagonistic to enterprises. So the way they originally presented this was, look, it's going to be on there. If this is an enterprise device, the enterprise cannot touch it.
Yep.
It's up for the user. They can do whatever they want. And they were like, whoa. What are you talking about? That's crazy. So that's not the way that is anymore. Now they're allowing, it's off by default, like I said, but enterprises have controls through policy to control it or not. And you can, as an enterprise, go in and say, look, you're not taking screenshots of this app or of certain types of information. So, for individuals, it's like credit cards and whatever other things. But, for businesses, it might be something different. Obviously, they have different things you might not want captured on these screenshots, which can't go anywhere anyway because of all the security controls on the PC, but whatever, I get it. I mean, look, I don't think there's anything stopping a user from taking a screenshot of the screen when that thing's on screen and sending it an email to someone. I mean, there's a whole path of stupidity that can occur. But as far as the underlying tech, it seems to me, if anything, it's almost too locked down. Like it's a little much.
It's impairing its usefulness.
Yeah. If you go, you can do this yourself if you have Windows Hello ESS, I think. If you go into like the settings app, for example, and go to, I don't think this one has it, but if you go to accounts and then sign in options, and I don't have it, but yeah, you'll see normal Windows Hello, there's an option that says, if you've been away, when should Windows require you to sign in again? And the default is 15 minutes. The default on ESS is every time, and you cannot change it, right? And that's a pretty big difference. Now, you as an individual could set Windows Hello to work that way, and then you'll have this experience I'm talking about. Let me tell you something. A day will not go by before you turn that off. It is horrible. It is. It's
no, and it's the problem.
It's heavy-handed.
It's what bad MFA looks like, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So it was always going to be Windows Hello ESS. That was always going to be the experience. Nobody changed that. That was what they envisioned. We just didn't know it. And here it is, and it's not great. That's all. To me, it's a pain. I'll just say I think they've overcorrected. So I get it.
I think you're still right that it was always going to be like this. This was
definitely is. I can show you the documentation. It was definitely and no one would remember this, but at some point, one of the delays over the summer, and then they came out and said, this is how we're going to change it. And I was like, I don't think you're changing anything. I went through the whole list and I went back and looked, and there was only one thing I wasn't sure about. And it was the Windows Hello ESS, this thing. It was this, whether it was going to make it happen every time. But if you go back to the May documentation, it was always Windows Hello ESS as a requirement, which means this always was the requirement. So that I've learned since then. So yeah, there was literally nothing substantive. I mean,
I think it just used the facial recognition feature so that, it reauthenticates, but it reauthenticates without interrupting you.
But it does interrupt you. That's the problem.
I know that it doesn't need to.
Like. Yeah, I agree.
Well, it just means people won't use it, right?
That's my worry, is that it's, for all of the concerns.
And that's one way to solve the security concerns. It's
make it too
nobody
secure.
uses it.
Yeah, exactly. The other one, I mentioned this in passing last week. Since then, I looked it up. So there was I saw this report in PC World. This is what's happened to journalism in our little field. PC World, right? Used to be a print magazine, right? Used to have people you knew and loved. Yeah. So they wrote a story, and it was like, hey, Microsoft's going to start threatening people with unsupported hardware by putting a watermark on the Windows 11 desktop if the PC is unsupported, if there's any hardware that's unsupported. I was like,
I always did that.
So I was like, yeah, that's always been the thing. So I went and looked it up since then. Oh, I should say it's written. They're either partnering with or bought a German tech blog. And so it's this tiny post, or maybe it was Swedish or German. And they're quoting another Windows blog that had this big, a story about this. And it's like, I don't think you guys know what you're talking about. So I went and looked it up. And when I wrote the first version of the Windows 11 Field Guide, I had a tip in there about how you could turn it off, right? And I eventually got rid of it because I never actually saw it appear on any computer. So I thought, well, Microsoft's not going to do this anymore. So when I looked it up, so when I wrote that, the first version of the book came out in October 2022, 1 year after Windows 11, right? The first example of the exact language on that page that talks about a watermark dates back to July 2022.
All right.
So it was 6 months before I wrote the book, the first version of the book. It was over 18 months ago now, or about 18 months ago now. This is not new. So people are acting like, oh my God, they're closing the reins. It's coming. It's like, no, they've been talking about this for a long time. So
yeah, because Win 11 shipped in 21, and they had the TPM2 requirement from the outset, and then we got around that. So I always wondered if they just weren't enforcing.
Microsoft, I mean, to this day, documents ways that you can get around these blockers. Like they actually document how you could do it, which is kind of strange. But they're acting like you're swearing an oath. Like it's like you have to promise that you understand that you might not get like updates, which has never happened,
right?
And you might get a watermark on the desktop, which has never happened,
right?
And then you have to raise your hand, put your other hand on a Bible or something, and it's like that's not really what's happening here.
I promise.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's not new.
Okay, whatever. Yeah.
And then this one will probably be the most controversial of the three I have here, which is that
is this an editorial?
Yep, editorial. I think Intel's toast. I think it's over.
I think it's
and the reason and what triggered I've been kind of leaning in this direction, for a while. I'm not exactly Nostradamus here. I mean, you can see what's going wrong with this company. But the thing that did it for me was we taught when that Monday occurred, a week ago Monday, where we woke up and they're like, hey, Pat Gelsinger is retiring. It's like, oh, really? Fascinating. And then you find out, sure enough,
the board gave them an option.
Leave or we'll fire you.
Or you'll be leaving.
So you think, okay, something's happened. Some partner walked away, some milestone wasn't hit, some promise was unmet, some whatever it was, something happened. And they got an offer from Qualcomm they can't refuse, or something happened. So obviously the next thing we're going to learn is that the strategy is changing. That's what's going to happen. The strategy is exactly the same. The people who are co-running the company now, the two co-CEOs, these two non-engineer idiots, are like, oh no, we're not changing the strategy at all. Okay. So what, you gave this guy 3.5 years to implement this incredible turnaround, and you're not, what? Why did you fire him? What was the problem? He was the guy that lobbied the US government to get something called the CHIPS Act to happen.
Yep.
He didn't lobby them to get the money. He did. But first he said, you know what you guys should do? You should give us money. And it worked.
Yeah.
That's what he did. And you got rid of that guy? Really?
No, I mean, when you're going to restructure a company, you need a restructuring CEO, not an engineer CEO.
But that's why I believe Intel's dead, because now that you're talking restructuring, there's the minor stuff. There's these little other businesses like Mobileye Security and whatever else that Intel has that, get rid
which
of
they've
that.
been shuffling a bunch of them off anyway.
Yep, which is part of this, because I think like Pat Gelsinger's been working toward this. Remember, Pat Gelsinger was the guy who started reporting Foundry revenues as if it were a separate company.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a clearer sign ever that this was the future.
Yeah.
Right?
I just don't know that he had the political clout to actually do it. So he was dancing around it, right? That's the difference.
Okay. Well,
I also think you were just listing off all the possible ingredients. Qualcomm did suggest they were interested in bits of it.
That's
AMD has made suggestions. Like all the pieces are there.
Yep.
Now the
where
question
the
is,
problem
can you
might
cut
be
the
the
deal?
board. It might really be.
Oh, without doubt.
I think Intel might
the
literally
board,
have the worst board in the history of big tech.
Companies in general tend to have crony boards, right? Boards of friends. Yeah.
But these are
crony
crony
boards. Yeah.
But Intel's board is made up now largely of non-engineers. They're just like the guy who was the CEO of Intel before Pat Gelsinger, whose name escapes me because who cares? He didn't do a single freaking thing. Was not an engineer.
Yeah.
He was the CFO of like 3 or 4 different companies before he came to Intel.
Right.
and he didn't do a single freaking thing in 2 years.
I think it's part of the challenge there is, do you know how to work the politics to get this done? What is the tool you have in your pocket? Do you know how to raise money? Do you know how to close the deals?
Right.
Can you get through the regulatory requirements you're going to have? DOD is going to have an opinion. FTC is going to be all over this. This is not a small thing to pull off. I think dismantling of a giant.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I just want to be clear. I'm not disagreeing about any of it. But this is part of what leads me to this inevitable kind of conclusion. Intel, as we know it, is over.
Is over. It had been for a while. I would also say this.
Yes.
Gelsinger was probably retired because they went off the Dow. That's a statement, right?
Yeah.
When they came off the Dow, he was done. It doesn't matter what he was doing.
You don't have to be an engineer to be unhappy about that. That's why the board.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, look, the board they're responsible to shareholders. I mean, their purview, their point of being is completely different, maybe from that of the engineer. CEO.
You got a couple of calls from a couple of those larger pension funds saying, WTF, dude, do you know how much stock I have to shift now?
Of course.
Because fund's rules mean only Dow companies?
That's fine. I'm just saying, but the point here is that Intel, as this force that was 50% of the personal computing industry called Wintel.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's over. I think that's over. And when you look at this inevitable shift where these things drift apart, you've got a foundry business that cannot keep up to TSMC to save its life. And you've got a company that is still the biggest, but floundering master of the smallest pond in personal computing, has done nothing right for the past several years, technically. Mm-hmm. And I think, now at the worst possible time, two things have happened. AMD, which should have taken this over, has restructured itself to focus on cloud computing and AI and not on PCs. Mm-hmm. And Qualcomm happened with Snapdragon X. Like I said, aliens handed down this technology. Yeah. And so now we have this out as an industry, this thing that is actually technically better.
Now, I wouldn't be surprised at all if an entity takes over the licensing for the x86 and they actually run it through some other fabs and make some really phenomenally good versions of it.
Yeah, I will say the little asterisk here is AMD has done such a phenomenal job with Zen 5. Mm-hmm. And it's weird because they're just not emphasizing this too much. Their graphics business is next to nothing. They're really making this AI push now, but that stuff.
That's also their board hammering them to keep the stock price up. We don't want to get delisted either, right? They're all got their fights here. This political.
It's too bad because Zen 5 is very good. It is very good. It's not it's not Qualcomm quality, but as far as you need that compatibility, whatever, you're okay with, 2/3 of the battery life or whatever. General performance across the board is unbelievable.
5 years from now, will x86 be gone?
No.
So it never goes away, but then businesses will keep it there, just those code bases. But the point is it influential? Is it evolving to some point that is interesting and exciting?
But it hasn't been for ages, right?
No, I know that. I know, but you're right. But it has been kept in the market by inertia. Yes. If you look at 250 million,
and it's going to stay in the market of inertia for longer too.
See, all
you're seeing here is that the vertical integration model is over for Intel.
I'm arguing that is what's going to change. That Intel has maintained this incredible control over the industry through paying companies off. Mm-hmm. Right. There was a 3-year period where Dell was profitable only because Intel paid them.
Right.
Which is their model. And and they can't do that anymore.
No, they don't have the money.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. Intel and then x86.
You're talking about the bankruptcy model, the very slowly, then all at once, and maybe this is the all at once.
This is my point. Yeah, I think I think x86 goes with it. I think we collectively of an industry, just like Dave Cutler looked at x64 and said, "Yep, this is the way forward for 64 bits." At that time, 25 years ago, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Windows on Windows was the paper. Right.
Yeah. And this is, Apple, this is a sad reality of our existence. Apple has shown us the way so many times, and we hate them. We resent them. We're jealous of them. And they did it with ARM, and they did it on the PC with the Mac. And can we just wake up and get the message for once? This is the way forward. Yeah. They showed us how to do it.
Well, and it's not like they had a grand vision. They were just trying to make money, and they knew the phone was the win for them.
I mean when they did the Mac. In other words, by the time they got to the Mac, they were like, "Oh my God,
which
we can do
Mac?"
this across the board? The M1 Mac, the Apple Silicon Mac.
Yeah. So the fully integrated SoC is without a doubt Cook's opus, right? Like the thing that Tim Cook did that was not something that I was thinking was even on the radar of
You'll
Steve
never
Jobs.
have. I know Tim Cook is interesting because Jobs, obviously Jobs. I mean, it's like iPhone, iPod.
Yeah, but he was always.
But Apple Watch and health and this thing.
Yeah,
this is a non-engineer. This is sort of an engineer, I guess. Technically, was he? Sort of an engineer?
No, he's not an engineer. He's a supply chain guy. But you could argue that he single-handedly kept the PC, the desktop computing alive.
Relevant.
I know. At a point where he had the key to killing it.
Yeah.
Right.
That blows my mind.
They even were talking about a post-PC era.
In 2011, Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs.
Cook went to TSMC in 2011.
Yeah.
And the TSMC chairman, his autobiography just came out. And Cook said to him, "When can you make me a desktop chip?
Right.
And what do you need to make it?" They funded EUV, they funded all that stuff. Right. And it's an
when your biggest
achievement.
customer shows up and says, "I need something," you're like, "Yeah, all right. Well, what can we do?" Yeah, Microsoft doesn't have, or Intel certainly doesn't have that capability. So
look, Intel always thought it was best to have it in house, but that's because they started all of this.
Of course. It was just
innovator's dilemma. That's all.
This is the Nokia usual. Was the same kind of company. It's like our manufacturing facilities all over the world are our biggest strength, or your biggest anchor. Well, your $7.5 billion anchor. Yeah,
they're a strength until they sink you.
Yeah, both are entirely true.
So we're talking in the Discord. You probably see it.
Mm-hmm. No.
System 76, which is a Linux desktop integrator, has a beautiful desktop. Jeff Geerling's reviewing it right now. Mm-hmm. The Thelio, they've been making it for a few years. They make it in the US. They control all the hardware. They also make their version of Linux for it.
Okay.
A version of Ubuntu. I think probably at this point, but they're saying, would you buy this? There are very few x86 PCs that I would consider at this point.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what you do. So look, nothing is absolute, like I mentioned, like one of the cool things.
Unless you're a gamer. If you're a gamer.
That's an example. Like if you're going to play games on a PC, which is, a shift I've made myself over the past year and a half, whatever. Snapdragon's not going to do it, but that's the thing. Like we're acting like all of us have one thing that we use for everything. And I think a lot of these people that are playing games on computers probably have a couple of computers.
It's their gaming PC. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you
I have to say, Apple's coming for you too, by the way. More and more, they still are way behind on AAA games, but
oh yeah, definitely.
That's definitely in their roadmap.
And I'm
playing Valheim, which I bought a Linux machine to play back into COVID. I'm playing it on a Mac now, native.
Tim Cook, money guy, he's clearly done this calculation.
Yeah.
We could make the iPad replace a laptop. We could.
But we're not going to
do that. Yeah. But we don't. And
we don't need
for
to.
Fans of that platform, it's like, what are you doing? Like the stupid mouse support they added at first, and then the half-ass keyboard stuff, and then eventually they get there, and 12 years later, you're like, oh, this is the thing you should have done a million years ago, but you're finally getting there. But why don't they take that extra step? It's because they've looked at this and said, well, the Mac is actually a better business in that regard, and the what we would lose by doing this would be greater than what we would gain.
And they don't need to. They can have two platforms.
Well,
there's a touch platform and a non-touch platform.
Yeah, so a hardware-based company sees the world in terms of hardware.
Yeah.
Microsoft made their big bet with Windows 8 that we could do one thing that would do everything. I don't remember the history exactly, but I feel like it didn't work out too great.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It might mean the implementation was wrong.
We talked about some of the execution elements.
There's all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But there are different approaches. But yeah, here we are all these years later, literally 10, 12 years after Windows 8 and 14 years after the iPad. And Apple, they're making money other ways too, but they still approach it like we're this hardware company. Yeah. We want to, you use this device for this. You use this device for this. And then, people get work done on an iPad, but those people must work at like a play school or something.
I think it's pretty clear that's not a productivity tool.
But it could be, right? That's the thing.
For photography, my iPad Pro is kind of a nice platform, but
yeah,
it's not going to replace my desktop.
No, but even simple things like iPad Pro, the latest version comes out, awesome hardware, a new version of Final Cut Pro. You're rendering video, and then you go to look at an email, and the video stops rendering. You can't run that background task. It's like, guys, come on, throw us a bone.
It can do.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I have to wonder if Intel gets dismantled, the licensing for x86 goes into a separate entity.
Yeah.
They now can go to any fab they want. The chip prices drop in half because they're not being propped up by Intel's pricing and cost of manufacturing. And it becomes an actual really inexpensive way to build a PC.
So I think
that's an interesting.
Yeah. I mean, this doesn't change my whole Intel is dead shtick, but I look, things last. The Z80 went out of production fairly recently. The MOS 6502 didn't last quite that long, but it was in market for forever. We have Raspberry Pis that are running these, I think they're Broadcom low-end kind of ARM chips, whatever. Like, they'll always be something for something. That stuff is there. But I think just for mainstream, I will see. I mean, I can't. There are possibilities we can't really foresee, but I just don't see Intel emerging on the other side of this, like anything close to
not the vertical integrated business. No.
Yeah.
The brand may hang around, but I think it's not an innovative design. It doesn't need vertical integration. It can be made less expensive.
I think we talked about this last week. GE is a model here.
Yeah. I mentioned Polaroid
did not
as like
survive
a license
as the conglomerate.
There. Yeah,
they
the
split
brand
into
license.
3 parts: healthcare and I don't get nuclear plants or something. But they really
Sure.
the General Electric we knew for a century is gone.
Yep,
it's split into parts, and that's what's going to happen to Intel, right?
I think so. When this event occurred last week, it wasn't clear, but the more time that goes by, little bits, the board will start talking a little bit, or those two co-CEOs, and you're like, they don't actually have a plan.
So they've announced co-CEOs?
Yeah, they both said they literally said, "Oh no, we're not changing the strategy." It's like,
yes, you are. Yes,
okay,
you are.
Well, that's because are
they M&A guys?
No, they were existing board members.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Well,
so they're interim. They're interim.
They're
Exactly.
trying to
doing
hire
a
somebody.
search. But it's just,
can you imagine the quality of the people that are going to would ever be interested in
They
this?
were floating a rumor that Johnny Cerrugi, who's chief of hardware at Apple,
yes,
would be. But you know what? Johnny's going to go, yeah, right. No.
Yeah, they're not looking for an engineer. They're looking for a restructurer.
An M&A guy.
Yeah.
Or gal. They're looking for Marissa Meyer.
No,
I think she's available, by the way.
I'm pretty sure she is.
They're going to need someone who knows how to work with the FTC, who can deal with the DoD concerns, who can piece this company out into places that'll keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
What a job.
Well, that's the big thing. Like, supposedly,
they'll make a lot of money doing it.
They will.
The award from the CHIPS Act, assuming they hit their milestones, is based on Intel staying together,
right?
Apparently. I think that's nonsense. But I would imagine that allowing the foundry, which to me is the healthy, more potential part of the company, to go off and do its own thing and get that money and help it do that would actually make some sense.
Sure. As long as they can fill the pipeline.
Well, and the fabs are still
and it's
valuable.
DUV, right?
They'll always be legacy nodes. You can make, hey, my PC's running an M12.
I was going to say, I just mentioned Raspberry Pi. We need someone to make those chips.
Who's
I mean,
make
you guys will be
chips?
great for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But low margin business.
Right.
What was that? It was like the 3 or 4 year period where they couldn't get past 10 nanometer was probably the time. Like, it was like Intel as a company had a stroke and no one saw it. And
I saw it. We talked a lot
everyone
about
saw it.
Like,
I'm sorry. No, but I mean, but nothing happened. Like, nothing changed.
No,
like,
but it was
they
obvious.
sat there in stasis for.
Yeah. They were stuck.
Yeah, it's too bad.
And people are putting out 3 nanometer chips and they're at 10.
I know.
They're just
stuck.
I
think they might have 7. No.
I don't know. Do they?
I think
I don't know if they do. Do they?
Well, and it's a relativistic measure anyway.
It is. It's not really anymore.
It's become a kind of a marketing term.
Yeah.
But yes, they definitely had a tough time doing the tech part of the TikTok.
So,
Yeah,
Leo, you
yeah.
mentioned in the Discord that you were worried about like Linux on ARM. And
so the
I
System
actually-
76s are Linux
Yeah.
desktops. They're beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but they do have in x86. I'm sure they have AMD and Intel. They certainly have AMD, but apparently they have ARM versions. But would you buy a Linux on ARM at this point? I don't know.
Not today, but as long ago as, I don't know, February or maybe March of this past year, Snap or Qualcomm, it was very public about the work that they're doing.
They're working with them. Yes.
Oh yeah, they've been doing this forever since they
Right.
started this chipset. So they're actually part of that community. They have I don't know what the organization's called, but they're making sure that there are drivers for Linux for all of the hardware components.
Right.
that
And
are
since
in these
System
systems.
76 is making all the hardware, presumably they're using hardware that is, that can be work with. I mean, I would assume. Should I buy one and just find out?
No,
I'm going to watch
wouldn't-
Jeff Geerling's
yeah,
YouTube
I wouldn't do
channel
this.
first.
I wouldn't do this now, but
Yeah.
but this coming year,
These
I
are
bet
beautiful
this changes.
computers. They're
They really-
so
yeah, they are.
sweet. Yeah.
No, I mean, I mentioned earlier, like, these use cases where like obviously x64 makes sense, like gaming. I would say for now, Linux
Yeah.
falls into this category, right?
Yeah, sort of because of the
Just
Steam
for
Deck.
compatibility. Just,
Yeah.
That's
I mean, scientists would buy this, right? These are people with hardcore
Yeah.
big jobs they need to get done and like that. I mean, I don't know who they are.
We're not even sure they're people, honestly. But-
What are they? If they're not people, they're scientists.
Yep. Well, if they're using Qualcomm hardware, they might be aliens.
Nice.
That's my new theory.
All right.
They know something. Okay.
I'm going to take a little break. Little breaky poo. Do you mind?
Nope.
I thought you would be. I thought we would be. There
I
would be
understand.
more of this, but I'm ready to. Wait a minute. Now I have to rearrange. Put them all in the middle. Okay, there we go. There's some things.
Well, I feel better.
My
yeah,
stomach feels
you should.
weird.
You should be in the middle. Yeah. There's just some things that have changed in this world, and one of them is I have to do all this myself on a Mac.
Hey,
Shh. Actually, it's in a browser. I could be doing this on Linux. I could be doing this in anything.
There you go.
Our show today brought to you by a great company. We've been talking about a lot. I had never heard of them when they first came to us, and I said, wow, why don't more people know about you? And they said, well, that's what your job. So I'm doing my job right now. Let me tell you about US Cloud, the #1 Microsoft Unified Support replacement. You might say, well, what's wrong with Microsoft? Why do I need US Cloud? Well, might ask the 50 companies in the Fortune 500 who use US Cloud. Why do you use US Cloud? They're the global leader in third-party Microsoft Enterprise support. One reason, and the reason they said, oh, you should tell everybody it's less expensive, switching to US Cloud could save your business 30 to 50% on a true comparable replacement for Microsoft Unified Support. But I says to them, yeah, but it's not just less expensive. It's better, right? Yeah, they said it's better and faster. US Cloud supports the entire Microsoft stack. They're there, of course, 24/7, 365 days a year. They respond faster. They resolve tickets quicker for clients all over the world. But I should point out, you're always talking to real humans, real engineers in the United States. In fact, some of the best engineers in the United States, I asked them about that. They said, yeah, we recruit the best people. We give them great benefits, great salaries. We get the best expert level engineers, an average of 14.9 years experience. And that's for break, fix, or DSE. They're 100% domestic teams. Your data never leaves the US. And here's something that US Cloud does that even Microsoft will not do. Financially backed SLAs on response time. They guarantee it. Initial ticket responses average under 4 minutes. And I could tell you, and you probably know this, if you're in the hot seat, if the network's down, something's going wrong, and the CEO's calling you, the board's on the line, 4 minutes even, every minute counts. You're not going to sit there waiting for Microsoft to get back to you. You go to U.S. Cloud. In 2023, 94%, that's almost all, of U.S. Cloud's clients reported saving 1/3 or more when switching from Microsoft Unified Support to U.S. Cloud. Better, faster, less expensive. From Fortune 500 companies to large health systems, major financial institutions, even federal agencies. U.S. Cloud ensures that vital Microsoft systems are working for over 6 million users globally every day. Now, if I haven't convinced you, maybe this will help. Who uses U.S. Cloud? Big brands. Caterpillar uses U.S. Cloud. HP uses U.S. Cloud. Aflac, Dun & Bradstreet, Under Armour, KeyBank, even the IT folks at Gartner have chosen U.S. Cloud for their Microsoft support needs. I heard an interview. I wish I have to act this out. I heard an interview with an IT director, and he says, and within an hour, U.S. Cloud responded with, I want to say, 4 engineers. So not only did they bring the right people to the call, they brought the cavalry. I just felt like, wow, that was amazing. That was unlike anything I had experienced with Microsoft in my 8 years of being with Premier. We made the right choice. That's the quote. When it comes to compliance, of course, no one gets it better than U.S. Cloud. ISO, GDPR, ESG compliance. For U.S. Cloud, these aren't just regulatory requirements. These are their strategic imperatives. They drive operational efficiency. They drive legal compliance, risk management, corporate reputation. These are standards that foster trust and loyalty among customers and stakeholders. U.S. Cloud takes this very seriously. It attracts investment, ensures long-term sustainability, and success in a competitive global market. I'm telling you, you need to call these guys. I'll tell you what, here's what you do. Go to uscloud.com. Go to the website, book a call, just talk to them. Find out how much your team can save. Get the lowdown. When I talked to them, I was blown away. Because, I mean, I'd never heard of these guys. And I said, everybody needs to know about US Cloud. So now you know, you have no excuse. Call them, uscloud.com. Book a call today. Get faster, better Microsoft support for less. uscloud.com. Now you know about it. There's no excuse. uscloud.com. All right. On we go with this fine radio program. I like to pretend I'm still doing radio.
Coming to you live from the basement studios of the United TWiT Network.
Let's see. What's next?
Somebody says, Paul, why don't you like Walmart? It's because I've been there.
No, Walmart's good. You get some good stuff at Walmart.
I told the story in the Discord, but my
Tuesdays.
wife made me go to get a Christmas present for like a babysitter at one point or whatever. And I'm walking through Hell's waiting room, you know, and I'm standing in line with all these people. And I called my wife and I was like, you owe me.
So where was it that you and your son would wait outside when the new Call of Duty came out?
Best Buy.
Big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, those are quality people, not like the scumbags over at Walmart.
It's right next door. All right. So today, Apple shipped the dopiest update ever. I just want to show you my picture according to the new Apple AI.
Oh, you look enthusiastic.
I'm
you look
happy.
a little bit like that shooter guy, actually, with those eyebrows.
How about this one? Yeah, it's my Luigi impression.
So my wife and I are using Apple and like those pictures for our picture on like Eternal Spring now.
Really?
Yep.
Well, you've been using Midjourney and you've been using Copilot.
No,
you've been using all of these AI things. The Apple is so paranoid, I think, about their deep fakes and stuff that they really make it. It's cartoony. It's not.
Yes, they're purposely cartoony and like Pixar-y. One might say if you wanted to.
Here, let me take I'm going to take a picture of you guys, and we can just do a little thing here. All right.
That's not going to be good.
This is gonna be good. This is gonna be real good. All right, I got a picture of you guys on here.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna use this photo.
So it doesn't do great with multiple people.
Oh, maybe maybe that'll be a problem.
Like
it's gonna do you.
I had to cut it up to do individuals, but
yeah. So here is Paul as a superhero.
I can't really. Oh yeah,
It's more like an astronaut.
actually, it looks a little bit like a wizard.
You still got that awful smile.
I look like Nate Bargatze.
Oh, look at that. Nate Bargatze as Superman. That's exactly what you look like.
Yep. Oh, jeez.
They all have this goofy look.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry,
I had a hard time getting one that kind of captured mine was kind of easy, but getting it to kind of capture my wife's, I don't know, it's called like essence or whatever, was actually very difficult.
Well, that looks like you.
Yeah.
That's closer. Yeah. It's more you than Nate Bargatze.
Right.
I can make you a race car driver. But you see, it's additive. So I now have Paul as a race car driver superhero with fireworks.
I like it.
Starting to pile up.
Throw a
They're
Windows
piling
logo
up
on my chest, and we have a winner.
Anyway, I mentioned this because Apple is clearly terrified of AI, unlike a certain company we cover here on the show.
At Google? What?
No, that's next show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Google actually just did a big update on Gemini too.
Yeah, and I haven't had time to look
what's going on.
So Google announced Gemini 1 year ago, probably this week.
Right.
And now they have Gemini 2, and I just don't have any. I can't really talk about it too much because I just am so busy. I haven't had.
You know what's interesting? I don't know if Microsoft has done this, but Gemini, is now using current web information. So
I always
for instance, I've been asking all these guys, like, what's the situation in Syria? ChatGPT says, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have any historic.
ChatGPT was like, Syria was founded in 1872, but thanks.
Turn up your volume, it says. Why do you want me to turn up? Okay. So what's the current situation in Syria? This is Gemini. I'll do more of this later. Oh, it still thinks I'm talking.
Sounds good.
This is where I have to tell Siri to shut up. And when no one's talking to you, stop.
Let me know if anything comes up. All it got was, I'll do more of this later.
Nice.
Never mind.
Well, that went well.
We'll talk.
All right.
Google's ads are sad, where they have poor, lonely people talking to the chatbot as if it's a friend.
You saw the Apple intelligence ads where it's like this loser at work, fakes his way through a meeting because of AI. Guys, come on.
What is with these big companies? So Microsoft's not doing that. What's this Copilot Vision? Tell me.
No, Microsoft is doing that. Oh. So Microsoft invented that, Leo. I don't even know. No, not really.
You mean with Clippy? I see. You're an idiot.
I feel like,
Can I help you?
So the story a year ago, November, Richard and I were at Ignite, and we were like, there's too many Copilots.
Yeah.
And now there are too many Copilots. And it's actually not even Copilots. It's like Copilot features or features that use the word Copilot in the name, where you're like, what is this thing? So Copilot Pro is the subscription for consumers that's like Copilot for Microsoft 365 on the commercial side, right? And they're testing, I guess, a feature with a limited audience of people in the US only who subscribe to Copilot Pro, which is going to be an audience smaller than the audience of people who are using Snapdragon computers, frankly, but okay, fine. And it's only available in Edge, but the idea is that you're browsing with this thing and it looks at what you're doing. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. And provides you analysis. So if you want to learn more. So the simplest version would be like a blog post about something. You're like, okay, actually this topic's kind of interesting. I'd like to know more about this topic or something, right? So it's super limited. Microsoft has gotten the memo on this thing is wrong all the time, maybe tone it down a bit kind of thing. So it only works for certain sites. It doesn't store personal data, et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't ever seen it. I can just go by what the pictures and video says. But the idea is that it's like every web browser on earth has this now. It's basically you're doing something on the web and this can help you do more with that thing, right? Context aware suggestions based on the thing you're looking at. So I would imagine that the big use case here is going to be shopping, right? That you're the example everyone uses, I'm trying to find a Christmas present for my sister and blah, 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 whatever. They use this for recall, actually.
Yeah.
I was researching pants, I did the green pants thing, remember?
Yeah.
So that's, to me, is the big one. There will be other use cases for this, but I feel like this is just, I think this type of thing to me just becomes it's a today it's a feature, an experiment that will be a feature possibly in this paid subscription. Shouldn't this just be the browser? Isn't this a little bit like what the browser company was talking about when they talked about their new AI-based browser that's coming out next year? This notion that it will help you do these things on the web instead of manually browsing around like a jerk or whatever.
Well, and everybody wants to get in on your shopping traffic, right? That's where yes. Google made their money.
Yep. Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. I get it, but this is going to be an example of, I'd be interested to know what the actual numbers are on this, but I feel like there's a huge part of the population that is just does the thing they do, which is usually just go to Amazon and search for something there. And I don't know that they're out on the web doing comparison shopping. If you've ever used like the shopping features in Edge, I just complimented Edge earlier. Honestly, sometimes it's pretty good, but the majority of the time you'll be on whatever site, like on Amazon, it'll be like, hey, we found a better price for this thing. You're like, okay, great. You can save 30 cents by buying a used version on eBay. And you're like, okay, so you are not helping me.
Let me show you, because Apple Intelligence, in theory, is doing this. But guess what? They're using Google. So let me show you. Let me show you. Yeah, watch this. So if you press and hold the camera button, so I'm going to take a picture of my microphone.
Yeah, you're talking about this is the Vision. What's this feature called? Vision. Intelligence.
Yeah, and then they have a search button. So I'm pressing the search button, but the search button searches
Google.
Google. It says checking with Google. And by the way, all the answers are wrong.
But it probably uses your default search engine. I assume you configured Google.
Oh, that's a good question.
You might want to change it to something else just to see what it does. But I bet it goes to your default search engine. Because I don't think there's a thing there for Google.
Search engine, I'm going to say use Bing. Right?
Yeah, sure.
What could possibly go wrong? So
somewhere there's a server with like a rusty hinge that's turned on for the first time in 7 months.
Searching with Google. Bing. It doesn't search with Bing.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay.
They made a deal. That's why. And if I ask, there's an ask button and a search button. Ask goes to ChatGPT.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, this is curating the best AI for the job is one thing that Apple, you could see them doing that as a service, right? I mean, that's their kind of shtick.
Let me take a picture of you, Paul, and see if I ask, I'm going to say, ask.
Who is this jerk?
I am going to say, who the hell is this? I don't.
They're going to be like, is this a Ring doorbell? You should call the police.
Oh, wait a minute. Look at that. It says, this looks like a live streaming session.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. Huh. Might be the live in the corner of the screen.
They're like, Brendan Fraser has really gone to seed.
Could be a giveaway. You do look like Brendan Fraser.
What's happened to him?
Yeah. Without the fat suit.
I'm working on it.
So, a lot of people are going to be playing with this. It just came out this morning. So,
yes.
And it's ironically, so did Gemini Advanced just came out this morning.
I know. It's kind of weird coincidence.
Same time, right?
Yeah.
So the Apple Intelligence stuff, this is the bigger release, right? You already showed off the Image Playground thing, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah.
Genmoji.
So you use that for your Christmas cards?
No, not for the Christmas cards. We have that Eternal Spring site.
Oh, that's right.
So I used it. We used it for the little, like the little face logo thing or whatever.
On YouTube?
Actually, I don't think I've switched it on YouTube yet, but it's on like www.eternalspringcdmx.com or whatever. What am I saying? Sorry, I lost my train. So it's just a little logo thing.
But you used Apple Intelligence to do this?
Yeah, I did it on the Mac. I mean, I had like the beta. Oh. You can just click. You don't have to. So just click through the bottom link.
No, I say no thanks. No thanks. Yeah. Oh, look, that's cute.
Yeah, we made like a little tchotchke out of it.
Awesome.
That's cute. It looks like you guys, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a creepy, weird way. Oh, here's here's the logo here up in the right. Yeah. It's not, I can't get it big.
No, it's small anyway. It's not.
Yeah. All
right. Let's see. And then
that's the real picture. I want the fake picture. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's most of it. I mean, to me, the biggest things are what you already talked about, which is Image Playground, Visual Intelligence. Which, by the way, if you're an old school Microsoft guy,
it's been around.
Remember that Lumia, Nokia had I think it was called Lumia Lens, or
Google had Google Lens. Google did this.
But this might have been one of the first ones where you were out in the world and it would actually show a pop up So if you like in front of a storefront, it would say, this is the store, here are the hours, whatever it was.
Oh,
Like,
that's cool.
it was kind of like an AR kind of thing on your phone. So kind of an early whatever, which I thought was kind of cool. Chat GPT integration, but without requiring you to sign in, and it's supposedly anonymized and all that kind of stuff. So cool. But yeah,
Not the $200 a month version of ChatGPT.
No, that's
That's the free version. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you
What do you
subscribe,
get
you
for
actually get the
$200
paid
a
version too.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I pay for the $20 a month. I'm not.
everyone's making fun of this $200 a month thing, but I look at it like a McLaren kind of car. Like, it's not for everyone. But if you can afford it and you think you need it, it's there, you know?
Yeah.
And if you look at that and you laugh or you think it's ridiculous, it's not for you. You know, just don't worry
It's
about
also it's a classic anchor high mechanism too. Suddenly $20 looks very
it.
reasonable.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a Malcolm Gladwell thing. Yeah.
So Google announced
Or
Gemini 2
Freakonomics,
on the
actually.
same day that we all knew Apple Intelligence was coming. Google or OpenAI announced Sora, the kind of general release, just a couple of days after Google surprised everyone with a preview of something called Veo, which is their generative AI video creation tool.
Do you feel like the horse race, everybody's kind of neck and neck?
Yeah, I do. But you said something. You said something earlier that I actually think is key to just general AI, and this goes back almost 2 years now from when Microsoft did that Bing Chat thing, and I was like, you know, Google's been working on this for a long time. They have the search engine. They're going to be the ones that put that together. I've been confused why this has not really happened yet. You know, the things they've done so far, like here's some AI stuff at the top of search results. And then it's like, no, guys, come on. Like, intelligently look at the thing people are asking and then reply accordingly. So it sounds to me like that's what they're starting to do in Gemini. And I think that's really smart. I think that's a key advantage for them. And I didn't write this up, but there was an interview with Sundar Pichai recently where they asked about Microsoft and that competition in AI. And he said, they're not even using their own models. And I was like, okay, pretty good. Pretty good. Are you okay, Richard?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. You were so still.
He's thinking.
I was like, he has dropped off the internet. You were literally not moving. You're like one of those people who pretends they're a statue and then scares the kids. Like you were just like,
bush.
yeah, you were just like a cowboy guy, you know?
Nope. Staying on the microphone. That's all.
So Om Malik wrote a very interesting piece on his blog that's saying basically what you're saying, that browsers are dead, that search is going to be browsers and search are going to be
I
replaced
hope he
by
mentions
AI.
this ARC thing or whatever it's called.
He did. It's as if that was an interview with the head of the browser company.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
So I have to say, we'll see what Google does. And obviously there are regulatory concerns here as well to think about. But I do feel like Google's the one company that has all the parts, in place. Like it's really kind of up to them to not do this.
Right.
Google should change Chrome to be this thing that helps you browse and whatever, like helps you do the thing or whatever.
This is his new newsletter, Crazy Stupid Tech, which is a pretty good name for a tech newsletter. But yeah, he talks about his own experience. This is one of the things I love about Om. I mean, he's been around as long as we have, so he knows the history. And he talks to Josh Miller, who's the founder of the browser company, about Dia, this next thing for them.
Yeah.
And really, he says this is the next step. Browsers will be replaced by something. I don't know what, AI.
I'd have to go back and look this up, but I had written an editorial some months ago based on what ARC was doing at the time, where it was like, this is the most, we just talked about this, the most important application on all our devices. There's been no innovation there whatsoever.
Right.
The most innovative thing is there are like smaller browser makers. They're like, I think we're just going to block ads and stuff by default. We're not going to let trackers through. We're just going to do that. And it's like, that's awesome. But it is weird that the fundamental UI has not really changed at all. We have tabs, we browse around.
And the customer is not asking for it either. Like, you really have to have an original idea.
Yeah.
And make it compelling and work with the existing internet.
No, that's true. That's true. Which if you haven't done it, it's worth watching that video that the browser company made about Dia and what they talk about, the kind of the foundational work that they're building.
But they're still using a browser, right? It's just the AI clicks things.
No, it's they're no. You should go. I would go watch this. They're trying to fundamentally change the browser. They're. I almost feel like we're going to call it a browser because that's what makes people comfortable a little bit or whatever.
You've used their Arc search on iPhone, right?
Yes.
Is that what they're talking about?
That's a component of it. So that's you ask it a question and it does a kind of a nice formatting thing. Like, what is a latte? As though I always use the same example, right?
What is a latte?
Kind of like a bulleted list with pretty pictures, explains exactly what it is. It provides links to the sources and all that kind of stuff. And
it has browse for me buttons.
Yeah, right. So
gives you an actual AI synopsis.
So for this kind of question, because there is an answer to this, and dear God, if someone could just tell Dunkin' Donuts the answer, they have no freaking idea what a latte is. But anyway, there is an answer. There is one answer to this question, and they can give you the answer. Now, if you want to know more, you can go find out more or whatever.
And they give you those links.
Yeah. But I think that's what people are looking for that kind of question.
Well, that's what Google said, but that's what's gotten them in trouble because they're not linking back to the source so much as just giving you the answer.
The great screen scraper in the sky. Right. I mean, they're going to get in trouble for this kind of thing, but that's what people are looking for. The more nuanced question, like the one you asked earlier, what's going on in Syria? This is something you could ask 5 times over the day and you might get a different answer because things are changing, right?
Yeah.
So,
but you won't get an answer for AIs that are not connected to today to search to the cloud.
Right.
And that's the differentiator. Perplexity's been doing that forever. That's what the Perplexity search does.
So I'm not proposing that this product I've never used or seen is going to solve all our problems, but the browser company guys, and I think Google should do this as well, Microsoft, whatever, should look at these use cases and say, Microsoft is doing little pop-up things and sidebars and all this stuff. And it's like, well, okay, but at some point, maybe this thing needs to fundamentally change. Like sometimes I am just browsing the web and that's what I want, but sometimes I'm asking a question, I want an answer, or sometimes I'm writing something in an online form or whatever it is, like a word processor, and I need your help with that thing and it should do something a little different or whatever. And I think that's what we're struggling with right now. And I think this is the time. I think AI is good enough or whatever, however you want to say it, is evolved enough, whatever, that I think it will change. It's not just browsers, by the way, but browsers being the most important app, Microsoft got a lot of pushback when they changed the basic UI for Office. Remember in Office 2007 with the ribbon
bar,
which I think most people would look at now and say, yeah, no, I mean, it's like, we don't even think about it. It's like, who cares? But at the time, super controversial. And that was a mature product where people would have said, and I said, well, it's word processing. It's a spreadsheet. What are you going to do? Like, who cares? But
I want to keep adding features, but I don't want to show them all to you.
Yeah.
Ribbon.
Or like, look, the truth is I just want to get something done here, and maybe like I'm a writer, so I might not want those the writing help, but I might need help with using a spreadsheet because I only use it once or twice a year, or with presentation because I only do that 3 or 4 times a year. And I think that those instances are where AI, I think, could help.
Richard, do you do that with your presentations? Do you bring in AI, or do you just go down to the library at Madeira Park branch and take out a few books?
You're right.
No, I read a lot of internet.
Yeah.
But you don't have an AI kind of summarize.
No,
it's risky because you could get bad information.
If there are technical tools like if this then, whatever that thing's
if this then that,
or the power, what do you call it? Power apps type stuff,
Zapier, Yahoo Pipes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things like this, right? So these are not Yahoo Pipes. These are not. Well,
I miss Yahoo Pipes. That was a great tool. I'm
ahead
sorry
of his
that it's
time.
gone.
Ahead of his time. It really was made of pipes. You would think that was right.
Who knew?
That aren't going to reach a mainstream audience. They're just too technical. But the notion, like I use Winget to batch install like apps on every PC I use, right? This is not something like my wife's never going to do this. I don't care how easy I make it. Well, maybe if I made it easy enough, but I'm not going to hand her a PowerShell script and be like, here's how you run it. It's not going to work. But maybe this kind of automation stuff.
I did write a PowerShell script, but I put it behind an icon. It's like when you click on that, it will do the thing.
That's right. I think that's valuable. It can be valuable depending on what it is, right? So the DIA one of the DIA examples is I make me an email. It saw that you were browsing for some gift across multiple tabs. Please send an email to my wife. I want to get her opinion on which of these she thinks is the best choice for whoever the gift is for. And it makes the email in the email program he uses. He doesn't have to tell it because it knows. And it has a link to each one of the things and the name, and it's nicely formatted, and he can edit it before he sends it, and yada, yada, yada. Is that useful? Yeah. I mean, yeah. Is it? I mean, I don't know. It's not the way I do things, but
No.
I don't know. Maybe.
Did I use a remote access script to be able to mute her speakers from the other room because she leaves the music on when she goes to lunch? Why, yes.
Well, that's a good use for home automation. I like it.
It's just a little icon on my desktop. It's
Does it say
like,
silence?
I've seen the truck leave. The music's still on. I'm not going over there.
I'm just going to throw this in as an aside because as a relationship expert, I feel the need to jump into the middle of this, that these things are all pros and cons. And when it comes to the person you've chosen as your spouse, the goal is for there to be more pros than cons, and that thing may be irksome.
You solved it. You solved it with a button. By the way,
I am less
everything
annoyed.
we do today is all because some guy at Cambridge University didn't want to walk down the hall to see if there was coffee in the coffee pot.
God bless him.
Yeah.
You know?
So little things from little acorns.
Little things.
Spring
Yes.
giant
Big.
streaming.
Yes.
networks.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there you go. So Gemini
there you
happened. And then there's a bunch of Gemini crap coming to your Pixel, Richard, which you can enjoy or try to ignore.
I haven't even looked at it. It pops up every often wanting to tell me about it. I'm like,
I know.
no.
Hey, here's an idea. You could use this instead of Google Assistant, that other thing we make that's exactly the same. Okay.
Which I
It is a little confusing.
Which I turned
isn't it?
off too. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a little confusing. Like
But
what,
Yeah, I think these transition periods are tough. I think this is part of the problem. You know, you got to get used to the branding for one thing and the whole way it looks and what it does and yada, yada, yada. But you know, Pixel has a image generation tool as well. Same thing, a generative AI image creation tool.
It's integrated into the Home Assistant phone client now. So instead of needing the separate audio devices in the house that you have to talk to, and sometimes they work, sometimes it doesn't, she now knows, hey, if I pop open the Home Assistant app and click here, I can give the command to turn off the Christmas lights and Christmas
My
lights
wife would sit in a room with a couch and a table and an Apple TV remote and a TV for 2 hours. And then I'd get there and she'd be like, could you turn on the TV? You know, and it's like, yep. I mean, I can.
Lisa uses it as a weapon, actually, against me.
Yeah,
She'll
exactly.
say, well, I would know how to use a remote if I ever got access to it.
Yeah. I stopped taking the remote. I programmed the remote into my phone. So now I have
Yeah, no. I said, you have it. It's yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can have the remote.
Learn
I've
the
got
remote.
It's fine.
It's all yours, the
This is
remote.
quality
I don't
of
need
life.
it anymore.
Yeah.
I have it in my phone. All right. Is that everything that we wanted to talk about? I feel like
I think so.
I lost the thread.
I know we've all lost the thread.
We did skip the Surface stuff.
Oh, yeah. Surface.
Oh, yeah. All right, just real quick. So Microsoft is not going to make any more Surface Studio. This is the giant.
Oh,
screen.
I know. Isn't that
That's
sad? I saw
I
that.
never wanted their computer. I always wanted that screen.
Exactly. And that's what everyone
That was the
says.
problem.
And so I mentioned this earlier in the show. I can't remember the context, but I've watched dozens of videos of sessions from Ignite, which is something I do after every big Microsoft show, right? And two of them were Surface sessions. And one of them, I wanted to reach through the internet and strangle this guy. But it was just like, this is the journey we've been on, like that kind of talk. You want to just beat that out of him. But anyway.
Panosing it.
Yeah, it was terrible. So, but it ended and then they have a Q&A. And at first, the first thing is like, hey, I wish you guys would make a screen. It's like, yeah, we've been talking about this for 12 years. Everyone wishes they would make a screen.
Yeah.
The problem with the screen is that when you look at the Surface Studio 2, 85% of the cost of the computer was the screen.
Yeah.
It's super expensive. So I don't think they've ever gotten ahead of that. So there was Surface Studio 2, and then 2 Plus. I want to say, I don't remember off the top of my head, what, 11th gen? I think Intel's a little behind.
Yeah, they weren't that new.
And so someone asked about this at Ignite. And the guy because I knew they were never going to do it. He kind of said like, oh, we listened to all the feedback, keep it coming. Like, you never know. And it's like, and then they killed the thing like 2 days after I watched the video. And I'm like, I swear to God.
He must have already known it was dead.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, he knew.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So Yikes. No. Anyway, that's upsetting to me.
I feel for a guy who knows his product's dead, but he had his time slot and he has to do it.
It's a tough thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved that first one, and I wish I could have afforded another one.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful computer. I don't personally have a lot of reason to pull the thing down and write on the screen.
But you're an artist, though. I wonder if you could use it as a drafting table. Could have used it as a drafting table,
maybe. I still feel like that situation is handled well enough by like a Wacom tablet or
exactly. Well, that was what they were trying to replace. Yeah. We actually, when it first came out, we gave our engineer Patrick Delahanty's wife Svetlana. We had her sit down because she does children's books and she illustrates them.
Yeah,
and she really enjoyed using it, but she didn't buy one.
No,
I didn't enjoy it that much.
No, I
think she still uses a Wacom.
My Surface as a business has not been particularly successful, right? So they have this one kind of breakout product, the Pro, which has done great, especially since version 3, where they got the 3x2 and everything right. Mm-hmm. And then they have things like, but they probably should have like Surface Laptop. It seems like they should have to have, something like this. I don't think people are buying a lot of desktop computers outside of the gaming space. Mm-hmm. So, when I look at it and I think Surface, and I think stripping it down to the ones that make sense kind of is the right approach, and not to have a million different products. And, logically it's like they probably shouldn't have this thing, but it is.
They knew better than us. They may have sold 5 in the last 6 months.
I know. I bet they were lucky if they sold that many. It's too bad because this thing was a neat kind of iMac alternative that had unique capabilities.
It was a Halo machine, right? It was like, here's a high water reference mark priced accordingly.
Yeah. Well, and it was using, remember they bought that big, what was it? This big touch screen company.
Surface Hubs.
Yeah.
Which they still make.
It was Pixel Art or Pixel Sense. Pixel Sense? Or was that the name of the display?
But that's what they were using in the small, it was a smaller version of the hub. Right. So that was kind of cool.
They made a 50, they still make, there's a Surface Hub 3 now. There's a 54-inch and an 85-inch.
Something inch. Yeah, they still make those.
The 85 is like $30,000.
We tried to buy one, and
for a long time you just couldn't get them.
Couldn't buy them,
because it was the replacement for the projector in the meeting room,
right?
Like that's what people wanted them for.
And that's why they still make them, because I'm sure there are a lot of
their demand is unbelievable.
Yeah, and that was the thing that they had their own OS, and now you can put Windows on it. They just it's like look, it's Windows.
Pixel Vision, was that it?
Pixel
thinks.
I don't know the name of it. Pixel Sense was the name of the display.
Yeah.
The display technology, which I think they still use.
Google had a similar device, which they had killed a couple of years ago. So
which had a silly name.
It looked like a Play School.
Did it begin with a J or something like?
It had some silly.
Yeah, it looked like an easel, like a cheap.
You could roll it around.
Yeah. No, but that's in the world where Chromebook makes sense, which is education. Like make a low cost thing like that. Like actually, something like that probably does make sense, or did make sense. I bet they announced it in February 2020, and then that was the end of that.
Display business may be too cutthroat for these big guys. I mean, Apple still doesn't
margin.
They only make the one display. Yeah, and they used to make a lot of them.
I know, but this is, how do you not partner with someone who wants to do this and let them do it?
Well, here's the more salient point. Every vendor out there who makes displays has looked at this and they see the demand, and nobody's made one.
Right.
There's tells you something. Yeah, you don't see 3x2 displays are not a thing, curiously, for the most part.
But also just the drivers for the pivot, all of that stuff. None of this is easy.
Yeah. I really liked that though. Boy.
Yeah. Well, it is attractive.
What can you do?
Yeah.
You're watching Windows Weekly. I hope you really like us. And you will continue to tune in. As I mentioned, we have a show next week. That will be the Ugly Sweater show.
I'm committed.
Warning. Okay.
The ugly sweater from Microsoft this year, by the way,
drape some LEDs on me or
death,
something.
If you've not seen it.
No, it's not. Is it?
Yeah. Yep.
They did a B-side.
I like that they're celebrating their failures on the sweaters.
They do this every year, and it's always sold out before I find out about it, because I always want one.
I think it's all the employees that buy them up, honestly.
I'm sure it is. Capicella always had.
Yeah.
Always had it. Wait a minute. No, this is wrong. What is this? I searched for Microsoft Ugly Sweater and I got this.
Okay.
For $1.99. What is it?
Are you using Bing or something? What's going on?
There's something really wrong with this, because it's the $1.99 and I don't want to buy it. Stop it. Go away.
Yeah, but just buy it,
What? I just Windows Ugly Holiday Sweater. Oh, it's in the Xbox shop. That's why.
Yeah.
Let's see this year's. Is it really the red ring of death?
Yes, it is.
It's invisible so far.
It's actually a lot less elaborate than previous sweaters. Like the XP one, I thought was kind of fun.
There's something wrong
Paint,
with my computer.
you know?
It's just, it won't
It's
show
so
it.
funny.
I might have to turn off the
Arc is like,
$4
no, we're
billion
not doing it.
red.
Arc says, I am not going to, you should not. Let me just turn off the ad block and see. Nope.
That's funny.
$4 billion.
There is nothing at the Xbox Gear Shop that you want. I don't believe you that it's the red ring of death, but I guess I'm going to have to take your word for it.
Wow.
'Cause-
So just Google it. Just Xbox ugly sweater 2024 will do it.
oh my God, it's hideous.
Yeah, it's not good.
Oh my goodness. Let me paste this link that Kev gave us. Wow. Even the choice of colors is,
I know it's terrible. Well, that's the point, right? I mean,
it's Xbox colors. And then is this like a piece of plastic on your chest that turns off and on?
I hope so. I don't know. It's funny.
It's truly horrible.
Yeah, it's not good.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you,
Verge had an
Microsoft.
article on it.
That's where I went because I couldn't find it anywhere else.
Yeah.
So
It was only for sales of Microsoft employees. So there you go.
well, that's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you
Well,
go.
that
On 'em
explains
all.
it. They finally realized that Chris Caposello.
Uh-oh.
And then no Leo.
Oh, I muted myself.
you're
Sorry.
back.
There we go. I was like, every time it fails now, I'm like, is it me?
Is it me? Is it
Probably
me?
I'm just going to
This is Windows Weekly. All right, let's do some. Speaking of Xbox, speaking of red rings of death, let's do some Xbox stuff, Paulie.
There's some news this week. iFixit is selling official Xbox Series X and S repair parts. This is kind of a big thing in our industry now, where you can get like the toolkit and whatever
Right,
pieces
to repair,
or parts
right.
you want, motherboards, power supplies, Wi-Fi, whatever. So that's kind of fun if you like to get inside stuff that you shouldn't be getting inside. So that's there. I'm actually kind of curious to try this one out. So Fortnite last week, or Epic Games last week, announced a 5v5 first
As
person
opposed to
shooter.
The normal's 20.
This is what?
Normal
Like the-
Fortnite is what, 20v20, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like the OG Fortnite, I believe. It's like it's a game mode of the most recent version of Fortnite. Yeah, which I don't actually play, so I'm I'm kind of saying like, yeah, probably, but I know it's not. I think it's not OG Fortnite. I think it's
Going 5x5 is very Counter-Strikey, right? Like that's
Well,
what Counter-Strike was all
and
about.
very Call of Duty-y as well, right? I mean, but yes, given the graphics, it's hard not to look at this and think like Overwatch or Counter-Strike, maybe. So we'll see. In fact, it's going to start in early access today, ranked and unranked modes. One map, they're just testing it for now, but then they're going to add maps and weapons and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, that's kind of this is a full circle moment, right?
The question is this harder on them or easier on them? Like having 40 players on a map versus having 10 players on a map, but you're going to have 4 times as many instances because you've got 10 players per map.
I don't know. I mean, it's
I'm thinking I'm such a back end guy, right? Like that's immediately what I think about it. So does that scale? How well is that going to scale?
I feel like Fortnite is like just a kitchen sink. Like they just throw everything at it now.
No,
It's a moneymaker, right?
Yeah,
the
I guess
the
it's doing
engine for
pretty
this
well.
is not a trivial problem, right?
Okay. I don't know.
I love it that you think about the back end, Richard. That's
Immediately, it's exactly where I go.
He's
It's
a
like,
back end guy.
This is the phone call that I would get, right? Like,
So I look at it and I think, would this be better than Call of Duty? I don't know.
I'm
I'm not a big fan of Warzone type, or what do you call it? Like battle royale type games.
Yeah.
But and this is it's 5v5. I think when you get killed, you're dead until the next round, but it's only 5 people. So
Right.
it's
It's not
really
gonna
not
take
going to be
that
like
long.
waiting 30 minutes or whatever. So
one guy with a well-placed rocket launcher, and it's time to move on,
take out the
right?
whole team. Yep.
I think
So
it
we'll
does
see.
have rocket launchers, by the way.
Of course. I mean, it's, so I don't know. We talked a little while ago about the OG original Unreal Tournament and Unreal being made available for free. I mean, we need a game like this. So, it looks, I don't know, I'll definitely take a look at it.
I love it that you can dress like the bad guy in The Matrix in a suit and tie.
Also, I mean, it looks like every
agent.
other character in John Wick as well, right? Like,
it's John Wick, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I don't know what it is, but it's, I don't know. It looks, I think one of the things about like first person shooters is that you want to hit some kind of a nice middle ground between like quality graphics and then just the performance.
This doesn't look high quality graphics. This looks more like Jet Set Radio or something.
Yeah, but I think that's that might be right. You know,
you're moving fast.
Yeah, because in Call of Duty, if you don't have a really good system, it just looks like garbage.
Right.
Like just make it so that it looks good everywhere, you know, and it's secondary to the performance, I think.
Ballistic.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Wow. Not to be confused with, what was it called? Eck versus Ballistic or whatever that thing was, the movie. Terrible movie. Tony Banderas, anybody? No. Okay.
Only you.
No idea what he's talking about.
It's okay. Microsoft has been testing the ability to stream your own games with a limited subset of whatever games you might have purchased to your console over the cloud, and they've expanded that. It's still in the Insider program, but it's a bigger audience, and I want to say it's a bigger list of games too. It's in more countries. Yeah, so you have to have Xbox Live, yeah, sure, Paul. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is the more expensive one that supports game streaming, obviously. But it's still in the Insider program, so it'll be a little while before that becomes available to everybody, but it's happening, so that's good. Valve, which is owned by, Steam is owned by Valve, right?
That's right.
So Valve, the makers of Half-Life, it's
privately held company.
Yep.
Gabe Newell, billion.
There used to be something called Steam machines. Remember this? It was kind of a semi-open platform.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
they did Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Steam Deck has taken off it's doing pretty good. And now it's doing well enough that several PC makers and hardware makers are making Steam Deck-like portable gaming PCs with, the controller on either side of the 7 to 8 inch screen, right? I think these new Zen 5 processors are ideal, by the way, for this kind of device. Good battery life, et cetera, awesome performance. But there have been some leaks recently where it seems like Valve might be bringing back this Steam machine platform, using Steam OS, like the same system that's
good, because I have some wrinkly shirts and I could really use it.
I don't think it's that kind of a Steam machine.
Oh, okay.
But I could imagine this being something like, like Linux, like you just put it on whatever, like I have a mid-level whatever PC that's not doing much.
Now,
they had their own OS. Yeah.
Why open the door to compete with your own device, right? Like Steam.
Maybe
because making hardware isn't a great business necessarily.
They make more money, I'm sure, in the game.
Yeah, license it,
And the Steam Deck has a small screen. I mean, the reason I don't use a Steam Deck is the screen's too small.
7-inch is not big enough for you.
Yeah.
No, I got a 55-inch monitor. That's where
I was going to say, I can game on an iPad, but I have to be like right up on it. Like I'm never going to play like a AAA game on a phone. I
thought you were going to say, I could game on an iPad, but I have to be drunk.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, like Call of Duty mobile's pretty good. I'm just saying.
I keep trying to play the Age of Empires because I love it so much, but they've made it such a pay to play kind of a thing that it takes the fun out of it.
Games have been insurtified too.
They really
have. Yep. Google's Stadia controller, which no one has thought about in a year.
It's not dead yet.
Well,
it might be pining for the fjords.
They were allowing owners of these things to turn them into normal Bluetooth,
which you should do,
control, which you should have done by now. But they're extending that time period for one more year, so you have another year to do
I like it that you call it Bluetooth conversion therapy.
I wasn't sure how that would fly, but whatever. It always works. That's all I know.
Yeah.
And we weren't born this way. That's all I'm saying. So well, in this case, you really weren't. You were born as a Stadia controller. Yeah. Anyway, I read this story recently where Apple, when they were making the Vision Pro, had actually worked up controllers and then decided against it because it was too complex and they wanted one way to do everything. And
Johnny Ive did not want
control. Well, that turned out to be kind of a big mistake because this expensive device might have flown with a certain class of users with money called gamers. So now there's a story, Mark Gurman has a story that they're working with Sony to bring the Vision Pro, to bring the PSVR 2 controllers to
the
Vision
gauntlets,
Pros, which is kind of weird because I don't know that they discontinued this or they're not.
I think they did.
I think they did. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah. We talked about it on MacBreak Weekly yesterday, and my sense was they were going to go into old PSVR boxes
and take
the gauntlets out of them.
I mean,
and sell
honestly,
them standalone.
yeah,
Wow.
that's not.
But
yeah.
but I have
this
to say, the Vision Pro owners on the show,
Yep.
Paul, Alex Lindsay and Jason Snell both agreed that this is the right thing to do. You need to have.
Yes, you do. You absolutely
some
do. This
devices.
is something we found on HoloLens and with Windows Windows mixed reality. Same thing. Like you do these pinch gestures or whatever, and they work for some things. But when you need whatever precision control, especially for a game, obviously,
And spamming. Yeah. When you need to hit the key repeatedly, gestures aren't going to do.
You need something a little bit better than that.
And Anthony Nielsen, who has a Vision Pro for some reason, he says scrolling is tedious after a while. Just by pinching.
I can see that.
You need some hardware. That's all.
This is the company that said, we're never going to put touchscreen on a Mac because doing this thing gets
stupid.
tiring.
Yeah. Then we made a device where that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah. Just kidding.
Oh, he says they are still selling the
Okay. I thought I don't know if they stopped like manufacturing them or something.
I thought
there was something.
Yeah.
It didn't. It's definitely did. The first one, honestly, for what it was, did very well. And then the second one was more expensive, if I'm not mistaken, than the console, wasn't it? It was like stupid expensive.
Yeah. I liked the original PlayStation VR. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Thought this is fun. This is good.
Right.
But you had to be sitting down, which was kind of funny.
That's probably the safest.
Oh,
thing, honestly.
believe me, that's why they did that. Yeah.
And then I threw this one in here because I'm just fascinated by this, and I love that this is happening. And this is not an isolated thing, but there is actually a lot of this. But this past year, there's been all this stuff like Atari refocusing on kind of game preservation, buying most of Intellivision and working on the older stuff. The 20th anniversary of Half-Life 2 falls into this category. I just mentioned the OG Unreal and Unreal Tournament. Epic Games is like, yeah, whatever, they're free. Don't worry about it. Tied to this is there are a bunch of open source projects on GitHub and other places that are also working on game preservation. I just highlighted two that I learned about recently. And they're both the same, right? And so,
you've also appled your icon on Thurrott.com.
There you go.
Oh,
look
right.
at that.
Like, okay. Yes,
You're so
true.
cute. Look
I'm trying
at
to,
him.
it's just trying to
He's a cutie, but yeah.
All right. Anywho, not sure what happened there, but that's okay.
Went to a place.
So the two games that I found out about recently are Medal of Honor, the original one. And this is the team that went on to make Call of Duty. They left whatever that company was to form probably Infinity Ward and made Call of Duty. But before they did that, they did Medal of Honor and a couple of add-ons. And you can still buy this game and those add-ons on like Good Old Gamer, GOG.com for like $10. And the second is I think it's the first two versions of the original Tomb Raider, which have also been served by various remasters and remakes, et cetera, et cetera. But you can buy those games as well on GOG.com, like $10 for both or $6.99 each on Steam or whatever. So what these projects are doing is making these games work well on modern hardware, upscaled graphics, et cetera, et cetera. You have to own the game, right? They're not stealing anything. It's like you buy the game, you have the actual game, so you paid for it, and then you use our installer and you'll get the better graphics and whatever. And I love this. Like, I think this is such a great idea. Like, I love this notion of, keeping these older games going because they're still, they're like Half-Life, the original Half-Life or Half-Life 2 or that Black Mesa conversion. There's a ray tracing update coming for Half-Life 2 that I don't believe Valve is doing. I think it's coming from a third party and they're just like, yeah, do it. Like, it's fine. Like, just put it out.
Yeah.
Did you ever play the predecessor to Halo Marathon?
Marathon, the Mac. So
So
Marathon
that's
was a
open
Mac
source
game.
now, and somebody has revived the Marathon trilogy. This is open source.
Marathon might predate Doom. If it doesn't, it was right around the same time.
We were playing it in '96 on the
Doom
set
is
of
93.
the site.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it was probably right after.
But I did. Yeah, you had to have a Mac though, I believe. At the time.
It was a Mac game.
Yeah. So I have played it. Yeah,
that was the beginning of the Bungie saga.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
so
because they did Halo after this.
That's right, and that was in the first Halo demo was at a Mac event, like a not WWDC, but what are they? Mac.
In fact,
World,
if you go back and play these old games, the one I'd recommend is the multiplayer Marathon Infinity.
Yeah.
It will feel very much like Halo in many ways. You'll say, "Oh, that's
not surprising," because if you've ever played Destiny, also plays a little bit.
Well, that's true too.
Just a little bit like
for other
like
for other reasons.
Yeah,
oops,
that's funny.
Richard's reaching over to get his. I think he has a Master Chief mask. He wants.
No, I don't. Okay. Nope, I don't. I was getting a whiskey glass.
I forgot. He's all about the back end. Never mind.
Yeah,
forget it. Yeah. He's not a front end kind of guy. He's getting a whiskey glass. You know what that means? We're getting close to the moment you've all been waiting for, the back of the book, kids. And oh boy, he's emptying the whiskey glass now. You know, that's
clearing his palate.
He's clearing his palate.
Properly prepared.
There might be trouble ahead. Back of the book, just around the corner, along with Paul's tip of the week, the app pick of the week, the Run As Radio pick of the week. It'll be Richard's brown liquor pick of the week. And an interesting, unpronounceable name.
We're gonna make some attempts at pronouncing these. I have practiced them repeatedly, so that I'll have a chance.
I do want to mention before we get into the back of the book how important it is now to us that you join Club TWiT. We've been looking at revenue projections for 2025, and it doesn't look really good right now. And like zero, like we got nothing. So we expect that some people come in late and so forth. That's happened last year, but really we're down to some tough times ahead. But the bright light is our club. So far, 12,000 people have joined the club, which is fantastic. It's been pretty flat for the last 6 months. Maybe that's the most we'll ever get. I don't know. Maybe that's all of the people who really care. But I know it's less than 2% of the monthly audience. So I figure there must be a few more of you that care. And if you do, join the club. It is more than, of course, you're going to get some benefits. It's $7 a month. We looked at maybe raising the price, but, I want to keep it affordable. It isn't a paywall. It really is just a way of supporting what we do. There are benefits. You get ad-free versions of the shows. There is video for shows like Paul's Hands on Windows that we only put out as audio in the public and stuff like that. But if you like what we do and you want to keep seeing these shows, and I'm including all the shows that we do, we're going to need you to participate. My goal before the end of the year to get 5,000 new members. Honestly, the membership we have pays half of our payroll. Not even all of our payroll, just half of our payroll. And that's not including me and Lisa. As owners, we don't get to take anything until there's a profit. And when there's no profit, I'm up in my attic. That's what happens. So please, if you will, consider joining Club TWiT. Lots of benefits. We do have a 2-week free trial if you want to see what it's like before you join. You also get access to the Club TWiT Discord. And we are doing a lot of events in the Club TWiT Discord coming up. Tomorrow, actually, it's Chris Marquardt's photo segment that we do once a month with Chris, his photography segment. Micah's going to do his crafting corner tomorrow morning. He's actually building some tiny kitchen or something, but you could do Lego, painting, crochet, doesn't matter what you're doing. Next week, and I'm reading this right now and I'm loving it, Stacy's Book Club will feature James S.A. Corey's brand new series. He's the guy who did The Expanse. He started a new one, The Captives War. This is book 1, The Mercy of Gods. Highly recommend it. And if you're a fast reader, you have a week. You could read it. So that's fun. We do the book club every couple of months. Lots of other things going on in the club. The Discord is a great place to hang. I really, really enjoy the Discord. But the main reason you join the club is because you want all of our shows, including this show, to keep on going. And if you like it, please do me a favor. Be a great gift, by the way, for somebody for the holidays. Oh, we don't have a card or anything. You'll have to make your own card. We do have a referral program, though. So if you join, you get a code you could put in your socials and everything saying, hey, join the club, and you'll get a free month for everybody who does. twit.tv/club. TWiT. Doom came out December 10th, 1993. So we are actually at the 31st anniversary of the release of Doom.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
It just means
Isn't that something? And Marathon came out December 21st, 1994. So it was 30 years ago.
Yep.
It's a big time of year, I guess, for releasing games. Time for the back of the book, Mr. Paul Thurrott. You got a tip for us?
I do. Although I just got an RSS update from Microsoft Learn that told me that they're deprecating another Windows 11 feature.
Oh, jeez.
Which nobody knows anything about. It's in my book, but it's called Suggested Actions.
What's it called?
Suggested Actions. I'm not drinking, I promise.
Dina Menzel. Yes.
Yeah. So like if you write a phone number or a date in like Notepad and then highlight it, you'll get a little pop-up window with actions you can do, like call the number with different apps that are compatible or open it in a calendar app or whatever. And nobody uses this thing. It's going away. So future version of Windows 11 is getting rid of that. It's not really a tip, just a little heads up.
Is that good, or if nobody knows about it?
That means I'm going to like be able to remove like one page from my 1,200 page book. So that'll be nice.
Yeah.
That will save it. So tip of the week is I've started publishing my kind of end of year wrap up. Some of these things I've broken out into bigger articles. That Intel thing came out of that. What was the other one that was in today's show? Where is it? I don't remember. It doesn't. Who cares? Not problem. Maybe I can't find it. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm breaking things out, but some of the things are just like single articles. So I'll do something probably about devices, something about books and audiobooks. But I did my podcast episode, my favorite podcast, 2024. And then like every year I do like a list of the new apps and services and games and stuff. The podcast one is kind of interesting because, you get those end of year wrap ups from like the services like Spotify, et cetera. So I use Pocket Casts, and Pocket Cast told me that the top 5 podcasts that I listen to,
you listen to a lot of shows, Paul. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, I do and I don't. It depends, but Rewatchables, which is amazing. If Books Could Kill. And then number 3 is a little podcast called .NET Rocks.
.NET Rocks. Runner's Radio right behind it. So, yeah.
I do like Books Could Kill.
Books Could Kill is amazing.
Such a nice amount of snark there, I guess.
And they're super smart. Like the thing I like about that show is like one of the guys will read like one of those airport books or whatever, like a 4-hour work week. And the other one is not. And then they just talk about it live. And the fact that these people can come back with what they come back with is astonishing to me.
Yeah. Very
but I like
bright.
the Rewatchables is like it's a sportscaster who has Bill Simmons. He started.
He's legendary.
This network that was bought by ESPN is amazing. It's from Boston. So there's a lot of Boston stuff, but a lot of sports stuff. So there's like this sports humor in this show that I think would be over most people's, or would just, you just don't, if you don't know the sport, you're like, what are they talking about? But there was one episode they were talking about, it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And during that time, they were actually getting divorced.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you, he's like, one of the guys says, what do you get when you divorce Angelina Jolie? It's like you get Jennifer Aniston in a 2nd-round draft pick. He's like, what is this? It's like, you're not winning. Like, it's just this stuff like that. Like, there's like the Big Chill. There's a tag football game in it.
Yeah.
And they analyze it like it's an actual football game.
Oh my God.
It's classic. I love it. Anyway, that's a good one. The other one was just app services, blah, 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 whatever. By the way, Leo, IA Writer, which from the Mac, is kind of garbagey on Windows. They're coming out with a major new version they just announced.
It's a great Mac app.
It's an awesome Mac app.
If you like markup.
Yeah. And I do. Yeah. And I pretty much write exclusively in Markdown, sorry.
I said markup. I meant Markdown.
No, I know that I put it in my mouth. So like I just repeated it.
That was my goal. That was my goal, just to screw you up.
It's okay on Windows, but they just announced a major 2.0 complete rewrite. Awesome. It looks, and so you have to sign up to get on it. But anyway, I've been using Typora and then also Visual Studio Code for the books. But some of the big stuff this year, like I switched to Proton Pass for password management. Clipchamp Premium, I actually pay for it to get 4K output and cloud storage, which is actually the big one. I did the Affinity V2 universal license, so I get all their apps across all the platforms they support, which is really big. And then I kind of mentioned, Edge before I wrote about, that was the other one. It was Edge. Like I switched between browsers, really, realistically speaking, but I was, right before I wrote this, I was like, Edge is like, it's not garbage. Like it's actually pretty good. I don't know what happened there. Anyway,
This is a nice idea for a year-end article. I like this. The apps that you use.
yeah,
I like it.
Because I noticed, like, I don't 2-3 years ago, all of a sudden, like, because a lot of this, if you go back and look at pictures of my desktop from like 15 years ago, it's standard, most of the apps you would expect, and then like I don't know 2-3 years ago, it started changing a lot.
Yeah.
And last year and this year, but last year especially, it changed a lot. There's a lot of shifting there, So anyway,
Now this is by the way a feature of the premium Thurrott.com. So subscribe so you can see.
You don't get in my
this.
head unless you pay for it.
You
Buddy.
got to pay for it, buddy. Nothing's free here.
I wish there was a better system. I really do, but
No, it's fine. You deserve it. You work hard. If you can join the club, you can join Thurrott.com.
there you go. You need a whiskey club, Richard. Speaking of clubs.
I might be getting that way, huh?
Oh.
The curated Richard, monthly
Did
subscription.
you get the Advent calendar this year?
What?
I sent one to Paul. I wasn't going to send one to you.
No, I didn't want one because what I did last year is I had a couple of the bottles and I gave it to my brother.
It may literally have
one.
just arrived. My wife literally poked her head in and said, "There's a box here."
Well, you're only 11 days behind, so if you drink quickly,
I'm gonna catch up on during the show. Hold on, I'll be right back.
it was a nice gift. It's a very nice gift.
I went Scottish again, but
I think that's the way to go. You're going to go Scottish again in a moment, but first, let's talk about Run As Radio.
I'm bringing back one of my regulars, Angela Dugan, who I've known for many years, and she's funny. She's been in and out of Microsoft several times now. She'll go off and consult for a while and work for an organization, and then got roped back into a different role inside of Microsoft. So she's back in again, and she's working specifically with the M365 folks with government, with GSS. And so I had been chatting with her separately, and she talked about that the GSS is getting to the point of saying, here's what's required to use M365 Copilot in government, city, state, county, federal, and so forth. And so I'm like, wow, we should talk about that, because if government can find its way to get to some organizational level of data to be able to use Copilot, then any of us could, So really fun conversation. And it's all the same kind of problems. It's just their metrics are really interesting because it's about serving constituents and how quickly can you get to a response to the benefit of the constituent. And so they're really sensitive to that these tools can answer questions quicker with the right operator. So that's the direction we went into. And then just this whole that government has its own version of OneDrive, their own version of Copilot. Like there's a lot of rules around all of that. So if you want to know how government's doing it, that's how they're doing it. I know you're impressed.
I am very impressed, and I had my mic turned off, so you didn't hear all the oohs and ahs. But very impressive. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some brown liquor.
Yes. Let's try and pronounce some names there. The easy one on the bottle is Tobermory, which is a town actually on the Isle of Mull. The word underneath there, you can see it. It's Ledaig.
Ledaig.
It's actually pronounced Lechig.
Lechig.
Yeah.
Obviously.
They got nerves.
I'm sorry. Why are we even discussing that?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Which is Gaelic for safe haven. So this is one of the very oldest distilleries in Scotland. It's on the Isle of Mull. And that's one of the Inner Hebrides Islands, the second largest island, the largest being Skye, which is where Talisker is. Mull is just north of Jura and Islay. So, Islay being the third largest island. There's only about 3,000 people on the island. It's not very heavily populated. It's kind of tough country there. Although there's been farming there. They found evidence going back into the Bronze Age. So there have been humans around that area for sometimes. There's a remains of a fort called Donegal, which made me think like Lord of the Rings immediately.
It's spelled Sade, but it's pronounced Goggle.
Yeah, but it's from like 600 BC, so predates the Romans, and it's been so. But the Tobermory was formed as a fishing port in 1788, and then a fellow by the name of John Sinclair, who was a kelp merchant because they were farming kelp in the waters off of the Mull Sound. wanted to establish a distillery. And so he put together Leipzig in 1798. So only 10 years after the town was formed, they had their one and only distillery. It was probably a mistake because this distillery has a very checkered history. So he started that up in 1798. It was shut down by 1837 and stayed shut down for 40 years.
Wow.
He dies. A new owner takes over in 1878. It changes hands several more times after that. The Distillers Company, which eventually becomes Diageo, takes it over in 1916, mid-World War I, when there's not enough grain to make any whiskey anyway. At the time, they had a lot of light-up barrels that they were making into a blend they called Old Tobermory, although the name of the distillery was Leipzig. Then, of course, 1930 hits, Prohibition. The U.S. market tears everything apart, so it shuts down in 1930 and doesn't reopen again until 1972. So another 40-year shutdown. I'm really stretching that they put 1798 on the bottle, right? You guys were closed for almost 100 years.
With a few intermissions.
So the new group that takes it over again calls the Leipzig Distillery in Tobermory, and then 3 years later they shut down. And then 1979, the Kirkleven Property Company, which is a consortium of a Liverpool shipping company and also a company that makes sherry and some other overseas interests, now fully call it the Tobermory Distillery. And they stop referring to Leipzig, which nobody can pronounce anyway. And they operate for a whole 3 years. In 1982, they shut down again.
My God, it's snake pit.
Yeah, and having not been able to pay their taxes, they actually sell off the rack house across the road from the distillery, which gets made into apartment buildings. And then 10 years later, Burns Stewart Distillers, these are the folks who own Bunnahabhain and Deanston, which is also around Islay and Campbellton, take it over in 1993. So this is proper whiskey operators that know what they're doing. They are making a sweet single malt there that they use in their blends. So Burns Stewart makes a blend called Black Bottle, and they're using it for that. But they decide to start making Leipzig in 2007. So bring back this peated whiskey. Burns Stewart gets acquired by the Distill Group, which is out of South Africa. They're the ones who actually own Heineken, and they scale the facility up. So now today they can put out about 1 million liters a year, which is not a huge distillery, but it's substantial. They run on pretty standard. They were for many years kept their iron mash tuns, but they switched up to stainless steel lauters, which are more efficient. They use Doug fir washbacks, only 4 of them. They have 2 sets of stills. And unlike most distilleries, their wash and spirit stills are about the same size. They're both 16,500 liters, which is considered in the smaller side. But normally the wash still is about 50% bigger than the spirit still because of yields. But the large spirit still was an intentional thing. I suspect it's lost into history. They probably guys got a deal on the size. But it makes for a slower reflux. So it puts some character into their style of whiskey. Depending on which, they really make 2 different products. They age in both bourbon casks and sherry casks. Because they have no storage, all of their barrels actually get shipped to the Deanston storage, which is on the mainland. So it's 100 miles and a ferry ride away. Again, this distillery is remarkably questionable. And then they make 2 different whiskeys. They make Tobermory, which is a unpeated single malt, and they make Leipzig, which is a peated malt. Now, it makes sense to make a peated malt on the Inner Hebrides Islands where the trees don't grow particularly well, but there's lots of peat. So it's inexpensive. That's your cheap fuel for drying your malt, which is why the Skye and Islet, all these islands make peated malts. These days, of course, you have other ways to make heat with electricity, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you're going to make both a peated and an unpeated whiskey in the same set of stills, you have to clean out the still after making peated whiskey, or everything tastes like peat. And so literally the Tobermory distillery does a split run, 6 months of making Tobermory, the unpeated stuff, and 6 months of making Leipzig with peat in it. And it takes 2 weeks to clean the distillery to do the switch.
Wow.
Why? But, they've just sort of gotten to this place. Now, and what's legit about this? This is a 10-year-old peated whiskey. It's not as pale as an Ardbeg 10. It's got a little more color. They don't color. They don't chill filter. This is a normal peating. It's about 30 to 40 parts per million of phenolonic content. That would be considered a normal peating, as opposed to something
not much, is it? Wow.
It's normal. It's a normal medium peat, right? Like Octomore can be 150, and that's like a burnt ashtray got smacked into your face, right? Like you don't want that. But this is nicely peaty. Like this is, we've got the fireplace running here now. The pot belly's running to heat the house. So you want to have some smoke.
Because it's smoky anyway.
Yeah. And this is not poke your eye smoke. This is, there's a fire, right? You're being heated by fire. It's got lots of fruit flavors in it too. Like it's really a little sweet and smooth, a little bit of heat coming down. This is a Christmas time whiskey, 100%, and not particularly expensive. You can find this in the US, runs about $60, 46.3%. So that's up there. But I would also point out, this is not like a cast strength or anything. They're keeping that number there so they don't have to chill filter. So it doesn't go cloudy with a bit of ice. Not that I'd put ice in this. You're there for the peat, just drink it. It doesn't, you don't really want to do anything else with this at all. Although, if I was going to have some fun, this is a nice whiskey to make a burnt martini with. So just take a little splash of this whiskey, swirl it in the glass, and then drink it because it's whiskey, it's good. And then make your vodka martini, which is to say, just cold vodka, and you'll have that little smoky hint of a burnt martini.
That's interesting. Instead of a vermouth, use some.
Yeah, a burnt is done with a Scotch wash, and this Scotch is particularly well suited.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, and that's not a bad thing because you're not whisking any whiskey. But it was fine. It was one of those finds in my local liquor store, and I'm like, I've never talked about those guys, and it's the only distillery on Mull at all. So that's it. And like I said, it's kind of debatable whether it should be there, but it's there.
Did you go in and say, "Hey, give me the Lachig," or did you say, "Hey, do you have any of that Ladag"?
No, what I was looking at the rack and I said, "What is that?"
Point. That's the solution.
And then I noticed it was on the Isle of Mull, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's one of the Hebrides Islands. I've never talked about that. Let's go get it."
Nice.
I'd always keep my Loop app on my phone to just double check if I talked about this, but this one definitely not. And then I'm looking at the name, and I was like, "There's no way that's pronounced Ladag." So I looked it up. It's like, it's pronounced Lachig, and I'm like, why? Well, okay,
why?
Because Gaelic is funny.
Lachig.
Yeah.
D is pronounced ch.
So you know who you give this whiskey to? Someone
Paul
who likes
Thurrott.
a Lagavulin or a Bowmore. Give them a peated whiskey they've never had. And it's legit. It's old school. It's made by pros. The same guys who do Bunnahabhain, but it's from Mull, and it's the only one. And it's not outrageously expensive.
It's very pretty. Look at the little island.
They make a TV show with that particular shot in it about the Isle of Mull there. So
it looks like Doc Martin would be shot there, actually, but maybe it's some other TV show.
Yeah.
And this is the boats where they bring it over to the other side for the barreling.
Well, in 1798, when they got there, they burned the boats. It's like, you're not leaving this side.
You can't leave. You're
the
here.
Population is, like I said, it's a 300 square mile island. It's not that small of an island, but there's only 3,000 people on it. It's not a big place.
Interesting. Oh, you brought us a fun little taste of the Hebrides.
Of the Inner Hebrides, yeah. And again, an island I hadn't spent a lot of time with because it was the only distillery. So it's great to have a find like that.
Yeah,
and,
no kidding.
If you're looking for a whiskey for an aficionado who likes peated whiskeys, this will be special. It really will.
Very nice. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Paul. Sorry I silenced you during all of that. Were you trying to say things? I pushed the wrong button.
It's okay.
Okay. I apologize. Paul puts in the chat, why am I backstage, man? I want to be in front. Put me up front, man.
I don't know.
It was my fault. No, it's very complicated.
It's a lot of buttons.
There's a lot of buttons. And then there's different switches here, and I've been doing that, and I don't know what the hell. Where am I going to show up? No one knows. We do Windows Weekly on Wednesdays. And I know you know that because you're here right now. unless you're not, in which case you don't know that. So that's what I'm telling you. Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. People can watch us do it live. Sometimes they like to. Before Kevin gets in here and fixes all the mistakes I made. You can watch, if you're in the club, on our Club TWiT Discord. Although, honestly, Discord doesn't do a great job of streaming video. So I think a lot of people chat in the Discord and watch on YouTube or Twitch or TikTok or X or Facebook or LinkedIn or Kick. You can watch on all those places. If you can't be here on a Wednesday at that time, you can always get an on-demand version of the show at twit.tv/WW for Windows Weekly. You can also see a YouTube channel that's dedicated. There's a link at twit.tv/WW. Go right to that YouTube channel. Great way to share clips. If you have a whiskey lover, maybe share that little clip with them. And it helps us promote the show. And you look very smart when you do that. After the fact, you can also subscribe in your favorite podcast client and get it automatically the minute we're done. Now, next week, there's a show, Ugly Sweater Day. Everybody wear your ugly sweaters.
Definitely.
I have a Clippy sweater I shall wear.
I'll be running on my new rig. Paul wasn't here when I showed this.
Oh, yeah. I'm very excited. Richard's
going
going all road, baby.
I'm going to tear this rig down tonight, and I'm going to rebuild with this thing, and we'll see how it works for the last show of the year.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, good news. You got a couple of weeks if it doesn't work, because we're going to take Christmas and New Year's off. Christmas Day, there'll be a best of, though.
Yeah. If it really goes badly, you'll see me from the boathouse next week with the portable rig.
I'm out here.
Is Richard in an outhouse? What's happening?
It's a boot house.
I think it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. No, it's going to. I use a Rodecaster Duo for the audio, and I'm very interested in this new one.
I'm hoping my levels are finally high enough, right?
Yeah, you can. Oh, you can crank this guy, like crazy.
No,
So Paul Thurrott is at Thurrott.com. That's his website. Become a premium member, and you get all sorts of great extra content. In fact, you also get the contents of his books, or you can go to leanpub.com and buy the Field Guide to Windows 11. Windows 10 is inside, always updated, which is nice. Or his book, Windows Everywhere, which charts the history of Windows through its development frameworks. Very interesting book. Both at leanpub.com. Richard Campbell is at runisradio.com. That's where his podcasts are, Run His Radio, and the show he does with Carl Franklin, .NET Rocks. And together, they are the dynamic duo of Microsoft journalism. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful week. And I will see you next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.